Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have the 4 EP types. And so Kate, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Okay, sure. I wasn't ready for it to be so soon. Okay.
It was really soon.
Type Match. If you guys don't know, Type Match is a dating and friendship app based on 16 personalities. And right now we're actually in the process of incorporating more, like the big 5. But I also have a YouTube channel that's just under the name Type Match. You can check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Yes, so if you want to find love and support your neighborhood ESTP, then go try out Type Match. And so Michelle?
Oh, hello. My name is Michelle, and I am an ENFP. I do have my own channel, which is about to take a wild left turn. So if you've been following me for MBTI, you're about to get a little switcheroony played on you. You can find out tomorrow. It's gonna be an emotional video. It'll be fun times. But yeah, that's me.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm Boris. I'm homeless.
It's so true. Yeah. EPs and 180s in their life is like very common. Like, oh, I'm gonna switch it up right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Exactly.
I'm Boris. I'm homeless. Joyce offered me a warm meal, and I believe I can fake to be an ENTP. I also do run a Toronto-based MBTI group with sort of an N focus. Anybody welcome. I'm not a broadcaster, but I've slid into this, and I enjoy Joyce's talks. And pizza, she said it is tonight, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's what I pay my guests. They get paid in pizza instead of money. We're low budget here. And so Kristin?
Hi everyone, I'm Kristin. I'm an ESFP, and I also run a YouTube channel called Dear Kristin, and I love Joyce a lot, and I'm just ultimate Joyce fangirl. So really excited to be here.
That is so awesome. I really respect all of your YouTube channels, like Dear Kristin, Heart of Michi, and Type Match. And Boris is great too, but he doesn't have a YouTube channel. So,
I can't do a channel. I'm homeless.
I'm a little starstruck by the EPs in the house. Yeah, so everyone go check out these amazing EPs. I'm a big fan of their channels, and they're wonderful people. If you want to be struck by amazing personalities and amazing YouTube content, go check it out. It'll be linked below. And so ask your EP questions, anything relating to the EP temperament or these 4 types. We would love to answer them. And so the question I have for all of you to start things off is, what are the commonalities between all of your types? One of the things I see in common between all 4 of these types is the desire to keep your options open. So waiting and then keeping the options open and keeping the opportunities and the possibilities kind of open. Yeah. So what other traits would you associate with EPs in general?
If I may, this may be speaking about myself, hopefully I can find the others. There's a sense of typically being very optimistic and somewhat intolerant towards pessimism or what I perceive as negativism, because options always give you, there's a problem here, there's something I can do. So if you encounter a person that is very, oh, this is terrible, there's nothing I can do, we want to help them, but we also want to be sure that they're willing to get out of their state of, oh my God, it's so terrible. Like, no, you got options. Would you agree, actually? That's a good question. Do you think you're fairly optimistic?
Yeah, 100%. It's like, to us, I think anything is kind of possible in a sense. So we want to explore those possibilities and are excited about doing so. Makes sense.
I am optimistic and pessimistic in terms of options. Because of NI inferior, sometimes I get overwhelmed by having too many options available to me in my life, and I want them to be narrowed down a little, but I always want the ability to choose. So don't give me all the options, but still let me choose. But as far as options of exploring the world, like, this is what gives me hope in life. Like, that's really the only thing. And I go outside and I'm like, look at this whole world that I have available to me to explore. I'm so lucky. And that's my answer for earlier. What am I grateful for today? That would have been a good answer. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow that up because I think there's another similarity that she kind of touched upon that I wanted to kind of expand on, which is that we really value individual choice. So FI is definitely more individual choice of how you choose to like or dislike things. Like we want you to be able to make those choices. TI is like making the decisions for yourself, but we really value that both not just for ourselves, but for other people. And we want other people to make their own decisions. So we give them, hey, here's these options and let them make the decisions because we really, I think, all value that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Would that maybe correlate? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so there seems to be this theme of exploration and gathering that the EPs have in common too. On a spectrum of optimism, so I would actually say, so the NE DOMs and also the FI users would be a little more optimistic than the TI functions and the SE functions, like in general, if you had a spectrum of optimism, but in general, these types are more on the optimistic side because extroverts in general are optimistic more on average. And so, Boris.
Oh, you're passing it on now, or?
Oh yeah, I'm passing on the baton. That was me handing the baton to you. Sorry, because I interrupted you.
You're about to drop it. Hurry up.
Well, are we answering the question, or are we jumping onto another?
Up to you. EPs can do whatever they want. It's up to you guys.
On the spot, Boris. Give us something.
I can, but we might go down a tangent, down a rabbit hole that we don't want to go.
Oh, well, that was it.
We signed up for this the moment we invited you on.
Come on.
No, I mean, the distinction between SE and NE, because SE is kind of grounded in reality. They want to experience things, whereas NE is probably more unconstrained. So I could see ENTPs being slightly more optimistic and also less bound by reality. What I wonder is, I have a sort of a dislike of authority, which kind of probably plays into the same scheme. I hate being told what to do and how things are. Like I could be I have a physics background. I could be speaking to Einstein. I would say, you have interesting things to say, but I wouldn't just take it on dogma, because out of principle, I need to figure it out for myself. So anything that's authoritarian, I kind of reject. I'm not a big fan of cops. I'm suspicious of them. I don't know if that's shared for the SE DOMs. I'm just curious. Or maybe it's more an NE thing.
I scrutinize everything.
TI.
It's very annoying to others, but it has to make sense to me. It's like, and sometimes it's like, no, I'm telling you this is how it is. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And it's kind of funny for me sometimes and not so much for them. But I can't help myself.
Yeah, interesting. I can't really relate to that. I'm like, if this makes sense to you, then you go for it. You do it.
Yeah.
I think, I was going to say in terms of the authoritarian or like having other people tell you, for me, it's having other people tell me how I should emotionally react or like what I should like or dislike. I think that's more where my reaction comes, because if someone's like, you need to do this, so long as I can understand what the goal is, yeah, I'll do it. Okay, we need to do this, this, and this. All right, I'm on it. But if you're telling me that I need to be mad at somebody, or, you know, this person totally messed up, they should like be looked down upon for, I'm going to reject that. I'm going to actually play a little devil's advocate and overdo how much I would support that person purely because I feel like they're being attacked almost.
Yeah. That's why FI users tend to get associated with underdogs, because if they see you being attacked, they'll kind of want to defend you in the sense that Michelle was just talking about.
I've heard that FI users are like equalizers. If they see you too high, they want to knock you down a little bit, and vice versa.
Yeah. If you're a little too arrogant, they'll want to knock you down a few notches.
Yeah.
And if you're down on yourself, they want to lift you up and say, oh,
yeah, true.
Yes.
That is true. Earlier on, Kristin was talking about this cheerleading that she does for people. It's like, oh, that makes you happy? You go do that, girl. And personality hacker, one of the differentiating questions they use to tell apart FPs and TPs is, or when they're EPs, so the ENFP, ESFP from the ESTP, ENTP, is, are you more of a cheerleader of other people, or are you more skeptical? And so the skeptical side is the more TI side, and the cheerleading side is the more FI side, which Kristin just did. She just demonstrated that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting to bring up.
Which almost sounds a little bit like they're simulating FE, and it's really not, right? Because FE normally is a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Constellation, it's really FI saying, no, I relate to you, underdog, and I want you to be better off.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so Christian says, question to all EPs. Of all the EP types, which do you relate most to, and which do you want to become friends with the easiest?
For me, I think ENFPs are the easiest for me to sort of bond with. But, you know, ENTPs and ESTPs are like close behind there.
I think the type that I relate to the most is usually ESFP, and often, like, even in like workplace scenarios, sometimes I can't tell us apart. But in terms of friends, usually ENTPs I become friends with the most easily of all four, just because I think they balance out with the logic, and we just like can any forever, and it's like just 20,000 hours of conversation is great.
I would kind of second that, because like in a work context and otherwise, if I meet an ENFP, I'm like, oh yeah, there's another German fellow in my work. We just have so much fun. I'm pretty sure it's ENFP. But honestly, all of you types are very appealing to me. Like ESTPs, I might meet them in the club context. They sort of have a slightly different swagger. I'm like the mouth, they're the body, whatever. So and ESFPs are extremely fun, I find. Right? So I really like, EPs are good company. But I can most relate to, I think, the ENFP, because then we can go on these crazy brainstorms where NE is just on overdrive for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in the NE conversation before for 20,000 hours, and I fall asleep within the first 10 minutes. I have two siblings who are ENFP, ENTP, and it happens like all the time.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel a connection with ESTPs, though, in the sense that like we're both running with that SE, so we tend to like understand each other very easily, I find. I don't know if Kate would agree that she feels the same with a fellow SE user.
I feel like this is a very difficult question, because this is only my second time interacting with an ENTP.
Oh wow.
Oh. Yeah. Like
in your whole lifetime, really?
You know? So, and I hardly meet any ENFPs either in real life that I could draw from this experience to say, like, which is the most of these. I just don't have enough data. So
that's true.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
There's another similarity, though. The not enough data statement is a common one for, I need more information on this, please.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like, I need more external gathering information. I don't know. To be honest, most of my friends are ISTPs. So that's who I, like, in real life get along with.
They get shit done. They do get shit done.
Yeah, they're great.
Actually, on the notion of shit done prior to this going live, you mentioned something interesting. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you have a great site that's growing. There seems to be a difference possibly between NE and SE DOMs, because I think SE DOMs, they like finalizing something, they like achieving something. I'm not saying I don't like to achieve, but for me, the main juice is in figuring out what could be done and then implement it. But if something ends, sometimes something interesting ends, it's almost a sad moment. It's like, damn, I delivered that project. How sad, I need to find another one. And SE DOM might be great, I did this and now I'm going to go for a run or go dancing or something.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah. The problem, I do love to have a final product, but I fall in love too much with my own creations, and then I don't want to ever let them go. And so I like to work on furniture as a side thing, and that really could become like a side hustle, but I keep all of it because I fall in love with every piece I do. And I just want to have that moment every day where I walk in and I'm like, yeah, that's done. And if I sell it, then I don't get to have that. So,
so like the physical thing is like proof of your work almost.
Yeah, and every morning or whatever, I get to walk by it and be like, yeah, that looks good. I did that. Yeah, we were talking earlier about how, like, in terms of entrepreneurship, having an app really wasn't the most fulfilling avenue for me because it's never done. And there's not a sense of every morning waking up and knowing exactly what needs to be done that day. And I think that's more in an environment that you might thrive in. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah. And so does the uncertainty fuel you, or does it terrify you?
Oh, it terrifies me. I hate uncertainty.
I love it.
That is something I've known about myself since I was in high school, and I didn't know where I was going to go to college the next year. Like, it drives me insane. If I don't know what the next step is for my future, I go crazy. Like, so yeah, I really like it. Anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that can be related to an ESTP?
Sorry, Boris. That as an ESFP?
Myself?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm like, at any given moment of the day, I don't know what's happening next week, and I'm fine with it.
No, next week is fine. But like,
oh, you mean like the long term? Yeah.
Yeah, long term, what's going to happen? Like,
yeah, I mean, for me, like with the college example, if I didn't know where I was going to college or like even where I was going to be next year or where my future is, that doesn't bother me at all because I kind of just see it as like anything can change, and so it's out of my control. And like I have goals, I have certain things that I know I want, but it's not going to really get to me if I'm not doing like steps to make that happen, or if I'm not working towards that every day, or if things change. I think I'm very much more process-based than outcome-based.
You are, yeah. I think am I the only outcome-based one here?
I think so,
it could be,
I'm the only control type.
It could be two factors. So Enneagram type, sometimes the Enneagram 3, if it's in your tri-type or your core type, like your main type, it can cause an orientation towards wanting to achieve things. And it can also be certain ESTPs I know in general, they tend to be very business focused. And so they want their businesses to succeed. Like my brother is like that too. And so he gets stressed over the outcome because TI is very tactical, especially when it's with SE. SE-TI results in a very tactically oriented person who wants to create a tactic to achieve something sometimes. That can look like TE, but it's not. It's not. Yeah.
But hence why so many get mistyped as ENTJs.
So many ESTPs get mistyped as ENTJ.
Yeah. So I was in business school, I got that type.
I believe it.
Yeah. And so what is the hardest type to get along with in your experience?
Oh, of all types?
Yeah.
No, only 3 of them.
What a controversial question.
Is it to get along with short term or long term? Because that makes a big difference.
Choose either or both.
Interpret it as you will.
I think long-term ESFJs can be pretty difficult for me to get along with just by the nature of the FESI. That's just, it can be a difficult, strenuous thing. Like short-term, it's great because we can have really good, interesting conversations, but we just see things very differently and want different things usually, so it can be a little bit difficult. I'm trying to think short term. Short term, I think, would usually be ISTPs just because if we don't have something in common to talk about, it can be really difficult because I want to talk and they generally, don't. And I'm also really bad at getting to the point. So I know I have pissed off ISTP coworkers who are like, can you please just tell me what you're trying to get me to do and leave me alone so I can get to work? Like, please stop talking.
You know my answer, Joyce. Okay, I don't know if you guys are into unofficial objective personality disorder. Not really, but theory. It's an extension of MBTI. I'm using this in a qualifier now. For me, it can be. I mean, everybody, you can get along with anybody. But for me, it's a non-jumper ESTJ that's on a power trip. That's the worst. I clash with them up front and actually seek the confrontation to get it over with and say, here's a boundary. Pardon my French. I'm not your bitch. You're not my bitch. But let's get something done. But let's make sure about this. because they can be micromanagers that stand behind you. They don't know what the heck
my God. Yes.
like, I've told the guys, like, do you want to do it? No. Then let me do it. We'll talk next Friday. But it's not the type in general, but they're vulnerable to it if they're not a jumper, because the jumpers I actually get along with. I don't want to introduce this concept here necessarily if it's not familiar. But these are the most challenging in a work context for me, at least. There's always that banging. Till you have boundaries, and then you have to actually kind of be rough with them, I find. You have to really push them off, and then they say, okay, fine, I know the boundaries. But you need to do it early rather than later.
What types do you guys find it the hardest to set boundaries with? On that note.
Boundaries.
This is such a good and relevant question to everything that's going on in my life right now. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of work on boundaries, and I think this could just be as a result of the people that are available to me in my life, and the mere fact that my parents are these types, and I have to set boundaries with them. But they're both SFPs. And so I've been working on setting boundaries with them. And I can't say that it's been particularly difficult now that I feel more full in myself and self-accepting, self-possessed. But it took me, I'm 32 now, 32 years to get here. That could just be, parent-child dynamic playing into that.
Kate, do you have specific types that you struggle to get along with?
I feel like that would not be prudent for me to answer. No, not here.
This is live, remember?
I have a channel. I don't know. I have a business to worry about, and I don't want to offend any type.
Yeah, all good. I'll take the baton off you.
Okay.
I actually have been thinking about this, and I don't actually think there's a type I struggle to get along with, to be honest. I think I'm actually quite good at getting along with any type. However, maybe that's because I understand MBTI and I kind of understand what a person needs in a social interaction and what's the best way to interact with them. However, I do find the hardest types to understand for me are dominant TI users, so ISTPs and INTPs. I get along with them, but I just really struggle to understand them and how their brain works and everything.
Yeah, of course.
But it's fascinating, but yeah, hard to understand. And so I'm just naturally more cautious in my interactions with them because I'm like, I just don't know if what I'm saying is like offending you or not. I mean, probably not, but like, yeah, no, not offending, but yeah, I just don't know sometimes.
Yeah. When people aren't reacting, you don't know what they're really thinking. It's like, huh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like, I could be wrong, but like sometimes I feel like with that inferior FE, because I'm just aware that it's there and they're like, they could be like omitting what they really think about things just because their FE might be telling them that it's not the right thing to say. But I really am just like, tell me what you think. I care. I want to know what you think. So yeah, sometimes I'm just like, you're really thinking something else, but you're not sharing it. So.
Yeah, they can struggle with that. I really enjoy them because I am the same, almost, I'm a sister type. So I can open them up really easily and get to like what they really think. And then it's normally hilarious. But they don't like to share that with the whole world, which makes it more special to me.
Is it hilarious because it's brutal? What makes it funny?
Yes. I like that.
Yeah.
I like the hard truth.
Yeah. And if so, no one else wants to answer the hardest type to get along with, we can move on to the next one. So Sophia asks, question for you EPs. Do your differences in your FI and TI affect how you perceive each other? Do you wonder how it's like to have the other function?
Yes. Yes. If someone else, I have an answer if someone else wants to go first, so I talk a lot. Okay. Okay. Yes. This can be kind of difficult because TI can be somewhat cold in its decision making in a way that neglects what I might personally find as the morally acceptable option in the situation. Because TI is like, well, here's the reasons why we're going to do this, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, I still don't feel good about what we're doing. Like, this feels like the wrong thing to do. And they're like, no, this is the right thing to do. And I think that's like, for me, one of the struggles in perception. But sometimes I really wish that I had better understanding of TI, so that I could see from that perspective better. Because I actually find ESTPs to be some of the best for receiving feedback from. It's just more so when you work together with an ESTP who makes a decision that you don't agree with morally, that it can become stressful. But yeah, overall, TI, I just want to like pick apart and understand how they like see things.
Yeah, I relate to that.
Kind of mirror that from the other side, because also for me the most challenging pair of opposites is TI and FI out of all the pairs that are out there. Because I sort of see from the other side, I mean, Joyce knows it from passing. I've dated a couple of INFPs in a row, and I find FI-TI really hard to reconcile, because I can see how I seem potentially insensitive to you. To me, the flip side is I might be droning through my little world of consistencies, and all of a sudden I touch on something really minor in my perception, which really triggers a strong response from an FI user, because they have strong, very personal values attached with it. And that's something that's very challenging for me, and probably I mean, I'm TI second, but it's sort of like a very parallel mirror image situation, because I feel like I couldn't be walking, all of a sudden there was a booby trapped mine, and it blew up on me, and I'm saying, wow, I can't understand it. And often I find I need to hug it out. You cannot argue with FI. If FI is offended, it's like a bleeding. Yeah. Do not try to say, okay, let's analyze this logically. It doesn't go anywhere. It's like, let's hug it out and reassure them, say, I think I understand where you're coming from. This is very important to you, to your personal value set. It requires constant work, I think, if you're with a person either in a relationship or in a close work relationship. You can make it work. There's much to learn. I like the authenticity of FI versus FE, because FE can be placating, but that's why I love ENFPs and, all FPs basically, because they're so authentic. They cannot help not being authentic. On the flip side is, you may offend them and you didn't even plan to, and that's challenging to deal with.
Yeah.
I like something you said there. You were talking about how like, I understand this is something that's important to you. Something that I look for from FI users is to just communicate the value to me, because to them, it's self-apparent. But it is not to me. I don't see it. So you have to tell me the value and what you are seeing. And then I'm very willing to like respect that and move with it. But don't act like, well, can't you see? Like, no, I can't see. You know, I don't see that. So it's just, that gap can easily be bridged just through communicating it very simply, I think. But FI it's the function that I think about the most. I think about it every day. Like, especially lately, I'm on a kick of it. And I think I find it most interesting and easy to analyze the ESFP and their use of FI, because we're using SE in the same way. So we're looking at the same perceptive information, but then the filter through which that information is processed is different. And so we'll spit out two different things. And I'm like, oh, that was really interesting. Like how, and I'm learning about like, okay, this is how that works. Because my mind all day long is like, how does this work? How does that work? Like SETI. So yeah. I forget where I was going, but that's my takeaway.
That's fascinating. And so Jenna asks, how do you value the concept?
Hi, Jenna. This is my sister.
Hey!
Hi. Is it the ENFP sister?
Yeah, ENFP sister.
Yay!
Oh, Yay!
also join us on this panel too.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
How do you value the concept of freedom and autonomy as an EP? Also, hi, Kristin.
So much that I had to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had a hard time holding down jobs where I don't have enough freedom and autonomy.
Yeah.
What does freedom and autonomy look like for you?
As an ESFP, it looks like being given the space to make decisions about what to explore in the tangible world. And that's not like free reign to just go crazy, more just like freedom to make the choice and learn through experience what decisions are good or not good for me, but through experience. So like sometimes people will tell me something like, this is how something is, but I haven't experienced it, so it doesn't ring true to me, and I need to be given that sort of freedom or understanding that I need to go like explore it for myself before I can come around to it. And if you try and like take that away from me, I will just naturally feel stifled. Yeah.
Kind of a mirror perceptive for me from an NE perspective. For me, it's important. Things should not be determined. I want to have freedom to look at something and then brainstorm and conceptualize and design something, then implement it, but to not be told this is how you must do things. Like, no, give me a problem, allow me to brainstorm, come up with my own solution. If it would be hell for me if I know what to do all day, like a typical ISTJ job, which might be appealing, it would be absolute hell. Like, basically constrained intellectual exploration to solve a problem or explore something, which is kind of really mirroring Kristin's statement about SE in the real world.
Yeah. For me, it's being able to do what makes sense to me in the moment without fear of repercussion.
Well, mine's pretty intense because it's not only my own personal freedom, but the freedom of society and society's choices. Like the fact that so many people all have to restrict their choices because of rules that are outdated and need to change, but we just don't change them because we don't have a reason to change them. The fact that there are so many people, that is something that like I think about often and really like sends me a lot of frustration. I think perhaps this is like NEFI, but like I think about those kinds of things, like those bigger picture, and for me, like freedom is more than just like my own freedom, but everyone else's. And like if I know that other people don't have that freedom of choice as well, like it really like weighs on me really heavily. So like for me, it is creating freedom and autonomy for other people that is like how I try to create, like show that value, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. That connected something full circle for me. When we were talking earlier, when Kate mentioned how FI is an equalizer, how if you're a little too high, they'll knock you down, or if you're feeling like you're mistreated, they'll try to bring you and lift you up, right? And back to what you were saying, Michelle, I realized that the reason why FI does that is because it's advocating for your freedom. If it sees you being mistreated, or if you're unheard or unseen, or if you're being mistreated by the group, the reason why they'll try to like jump in and help, one of them is they're respecting your autonomy and freedom as a person, because intrinsically that's a really important value to you, and you respect that in other people is what I'm seeing.
And you know what's really frustrating is when you have conflicting values of freedom, such as freedom of speech, but also freedom to be yourself, and the two don't often go together.
That is true. And so question for the ETPs, how do you view lead TE people? And for the EFPs, how do you view lead FE people?
I become rather entranced by lead TE, and I think I can be easily manipulated by lead TE, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
I have been, and so it can kind of scare me, because I am so susceptible to its influence. I really respect lead TE. So lead TE can put me in my place unlike anybody else. Yeah, what do you think?
Lead TE, I appreciate it, and I actually lead or even in second. Like I work really well. My best work relationships prior to knowing about MBTI were with INTJs, 3 or 4 INTJs in a row. So TE and TI, if you respect each other and can sort of cover each other's butt and weaknesses, it's a great combination. If it's too forceful, then I would probably push back. But it is, I mean, TE has the strength of getting shit done, but at the expense of kind of building something that's a little more robust in the more than immediate future. In reverse TI, the fallacy is you build this great, perfect system, but you never get anything done. So I respect it. And if you have somebody that shares that respect, it's a great combination in a work context for me. It's the ideal combination to get things done for me. Yeah.
Really
Michelle,
cool.
did you want to?
How about FE?
Oh, lead FE. Okay. There's some things that I really respect about lead FE, and I guess in the same way that Kate was saying, lead TE can kind of like pull her around a little bit. I think lead FE has that capability over me as well. Especially, I don't know how to say it. Sometimes though, lead FE feels like it's fake,
Yes.
especially too much FE. And I actually have talked to my little sister who's an ISFP, and we were talking about this before we even knew what FE was. Like, people who have a problem with you but don't say they have a problem with you and continue to do nice stuff for you is like the most annoying thing ever. But I do, like I said, I really respect what they're capable of, and especially in group dynamics, how they can really take control of the group dynamics. It is helpful as well because sometimes, people do need to be managed to a degree. I mean, like, I work with a lot of people in a business that requires people management, and the FE people are usually the best at people management, especially when it comes to the emotions of those people and making sure that they stay inspired to work or that they stay kind to one another and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I relate to your answer as well, pretty much. Like, I have a lot of respect for FE DOMs and just their amount of energy that they can give to people, and they get energy from just giving constantly to other people and doing acts of service for other people and like unpacking people's traumas and all those kinds of things. Like, it just gives them energy and they want to do it, which is fantastic. So I have respect, and I like kind of envy it at some points when it's like really, like, I see it. I have 2 FE DOMs in my main sort of friendship group, and yeah, I'm just like, I just admire their ability to just take care of us. It's just so cool. And without them, it would just be like such a different dynamic. However, yeah, sometimes that same thing of like, you meet an FE DOM or FE user, and you're just kind of like, is this like, do you actually like me? Are you saying this sort of just to like appease me or to make me feel valid right now? Because I actually would rather you tell me the truth, that exact same thing.
That question, could not, hit the nail on the head better. What do you actually feel about me? Is this you trying to get something from me, or do you actually care about me? And, having that skepticism can be really frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will second that. I mean, I'm an FE user, but that's one thing I understand FE can be used to manipulate, but mostly it's sort of a compulsion. They can't help but trying to please you. But if a friend is close to me and they are a high FE user, I'm not saying I'm terribly hurt, but it really annoys me. It's like, look, we have a close relationship. I'm being authentic. Please be authentic. That's why I love FEs, by the way. Yeah. That's not about FI. But if I have close friends and they placate me, it just annoys the crap out of me. I'm saying, you're just distancing yourself from me. You don't need to placate me. That's the beauty of, you can tell me I have bad breath, I look horrible. That's a nice thing about closeness. And FE high users have a compulsion to sometimes just placate you because they can't help it. And I normally point out, and you don't have to placate me. We're friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. With placating, it's part FE, so placation is definitely an element of FE. People who feel psychologically unsafe as well will placate. So if you don't feel safe in your environment, you'll try to please others, kiss their booty a little bit, because you're afraid that they won't like you. And if they don't like you, it'll have negative consequences on you. And so I think placation is a human phenomenon, but it's also an FE thing as well. And so, but if you truly want to get close to someone, like what Boris was saying, you have to show them who you are. You know, you need that lesson in that FI, and so that you can truly bond with the matter of their soul instead of a persona that they are. Yeah. And so cosmic...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. You can
but just the irony is with INFJs, I find INFJs sometimes do that. I have close friends that I've pointed that out to. But the irony is, I think an INFJ actually wants nothing more than to be themselves and be okay.
Yes.
Yet the FE gets in the way sometimes. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is true. So Cosmic Death asks, Kate's perspective on FI, do you all have an appreciation of a particular conflicting function to your own? A function you do not have in your stack, but you appreciate in others?
Ladies first.
So I don't have to answer because I talked about it.
I don't know. I think TI is probably the most intriguing function to me, probably because it's like the weakest function and always has been for me. Seeing how obsessed INTPs can get into things like is very fascinating, and I actually really, really enjoy talking to INTPs to understand what's going on in their heads. I actually have probably more INTP friends than any other time because of this very reason, because they will exactly let you know what's going on in their mind. I think it's such a valuable skill to be able to actually understand how something works and why these pieces fitting together in a certain way makes something function, because I do have the propensity to just learn the bare minimum so that I can move forward. And I really appreciate TI's willingness to delve into things.
Yeah. I've got nothing new to say. I completely agree with what you just said, Michelle. I often think about TI, and again, like as I said earlier, it just makes so little sense to me, and I'm aware that I don't really use it. And that same, like, I need the bare minimum to just move on, and like I just ever since I've dived deeper into the functions, I catch myself like regularly doing things that like a TI user wouldn't do, like the way that I speak and things like that. And I see it in my ENTP brother, and I'm just like, I just don't understand it. So I think about it a lot, about TI, and I try to fathom what's going on inside the mind of a TI user. And because like I find that TIs, I could be wrong, but they like have they can think of things from like so many different perspectives and like the logic behind so many things, but sometimes they struggle to see which one they value or where the value is so much. Whereas I'm like, there's this one value and it's down this avenue, and I can't see outside that in it to an extent. So it's like kind of the opposite in a sense to what I'm doing, and I just can't fathom it.
Mm-hmm. That is fascinating. Boris, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Oh, no, you might say TE, but actually for me, I can relate to TE. And even though Mike go against MBTI, when I'm under pressure, I think I can actually not only emulate, I can deliver TE, because I have no other options. I need to get things done. So the one that actually appeals to me is SE. I much value, I mean, some people may know for context, I'm really into salsa dancing and dancing in general, and I've gotten pretty good at it. I much value these shared moments where FE mixes with SE, and it's just amazing. But it's something that's not innately accessible to me. It's something I need to work on. There's people out there, I would say ESTP is probably a stereotype. They see something, they do a skipper, they see a move, they do it. I kind of am fascinated by that, because for me, I need to understand it. I need to internalize it, practice it in pieces, put it back together. Then I know it really well, but it's such a slow process. SE users, they just hop in the spade road and do it. They see this new move, they do it. It's something I don't want to say envy, but wow, wouldn't it be great if I had access to that so instantaneously as I can access NE, but SE is, for me, it's the most fascinating.
What do you appreciate about salsa dancing? Do you want to give us a demo? Like that might be
show us your dancing.
No, we'd have to do it in person.
Oh, smooth.
I
Come
salsa
to Toronto, we'll go with you. No, what I actually appreciate about it is it's typically, salsa dancing is you have a shared experience with another person that lives in a moment. It's like a 5-minute affair with rules. It's not very regulated, but you're really close to a person. You're sharing a unique moment that'll never come back. You're in a certain venue. There's music. There's communication going on, which is through movement, sharing music. It's sort of the mind is switched off. You're in the moment. That's what I would feel SE delivers in general on. And you have FE. It's a shared experience with somebody else. So salsa is very different from ballroom and other things. Like, I don't know if you're a salsa dancer. West Coast swing has the same thing. It's really, you walk out there. It's really improvised. You read the other person. You establish a relationship. And often there might be people, if you see them on the street, you're like, this person's not my type. But until you dance with somebody, you can have a shared experience with somebody that you would never be interested in another context. For 10 minutes, this is a beautiful thing that never goes away. And you don't know, till you dance with the person, how you connect with them. You cannot predict. You can watch them, you can have indications. But the subtlety of, do they follow your lead? Do they communicate? You let them play. There's an exchange of, especially in West Coast swing, it's not one person leads, the other one follows. There's a give and take. You inspire each other, and then you have a repertoire of movements, and you string them together through an instant communication that's non-verbal, inspired by music, it's flirtatious, but it's a flirt. You go, like, people have partners. You go in there, you flirt with that person. For that moment, it's a real thing. But then you walk away and it's okay. You're not infringing on their real relationship. Yeah. It's beautiful if you get to that point.
I love that answer. That was the best answer I've heard to that question. That was such an NE answer. It's like there's a picture going on. There's something. I'm like, I feel the music. I like just moving. Music through my body.
I thought I had access to SE. I'm just coding NE with something. Damn.
No, you are. You're nailing SE. It's great. I love it. That was a great answer. I love seeing your passion behind it. Very cool.
It was beautiful. You talked about this element of the once in a lifetime kind of like experience in the moment that you have with that person. And I noticed with EPs, when I talk to EPs, they'll mention, I enjoyed this moment for that moment in time. I don't know. And then it's absorbing that moment. So I think that EPs, they kind of have an enjoyment of fleeting experiences sometimes, if they match up with something that you enjoy doing. That's vague, but because I've heard Kristin say something similar before about something like that, enjoying the flow of a moment and kind of being able to let it go, because EPs don't get as attached to maybe experiences or things or people as easily as other people do to them sometimes. So they sometimes enjoy the moment as the moment without taking things away from that moment. If that makes sense.
I feel like I can experience. I feel like I can experience moments extremely intensely because of lead SE. I'm able to I sometimes make a decision, like I'm going to really put myself in this moment. And I do, and I live it so strongly. And I feel like I'm the person in the room who is living this moment the strongest. It's extremely powerful to be able to do that. And the whole world doesn't exist. It's putting yourself in a flow state. Mm-hmm. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we don't appreciate it. It's almost like it's forever burned in my memory. I mean, sometimes when you date people, they don't understand. I have memories. For example, I remember one time, University of Toronto, it was a surreal moment. It was in a courtyard. They were playing The Children by Robert Miles, whatever. It started raining, and I was dancing with a stranger. That moment will forever be with me. I can sort of access it as a memory.
Yeah.
But it doesn't it stays there, it's appreciated, but it lives on its own. It doesn't have to have a context. I can date somebody else. I could be married. I would still appreciate that moment. I would be honest about it. That was a moment that I'm really glad I was able to experience, but it just lives in the past. So it's not without value, but it's not attached to many other things. It stands on its own in this one space and time, because that's what all the experiences are. It's a string of experiences. That's all life is. The rest is an illusion.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I completely relate to that. Yeah. I have like a plethora of built up experiences in my past where like I've just met random people and we've like just sat on the beach and like poured our souls out to each other for that night and then said goodnight, like, and been like, we'll never see each other again. But this was a beautiful shared moment and I'll always be fond of it, you know?
Yeah. Experiential. It seems like EP types have an experientialness to them, wanting to kind of, like, especially the SE DOMs, of course, right? But like even EPs in general, what it means to keep your options open is to also try things. So there's a plethora of things that you've tried. And so I notice when I talk to EPs, they'll tell me about this, like the things that they've tried over their lifetime. And a lot of EPs I know, they've tried a lot of things. And that's how they know like what they have now, you know, because like they've tried stuff. And so that's how they make up their mind. They need to test around to settle. Yeah. And sometimes they never settle, but it depends on the EP.
What's settling?
Settling.
Yes, love it. Love it.
No.
I love it. Find this term. Give me 5 months.
Yeah. I guess you could take settling in 2 ways. Settling, what I meant in that terminology was closure, like just being able to pick one, you know. But you could also see settling in terms of settling for less than, you know, and that could talk about grass is greener syndrome or FOMO, you know, things that could elicit FOMO in EPs known for their FOMO.
FOMO is the middle name.
The way we settle is we want to know the options are there. We still stick with the option we like. But the moment somebody clams down, then all of a sudden becomes an issue. So give us the illusion of choice, and we will choose you over and over again if it's right. Don't clamp down, because that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found myself sometimes like arguing for things I don't even want to do just because someone's taken the option away from me. I'm like, no, I must know that this option is there, even though I'm never going to do it.
That's beautiful. And so Amber asks, what is your relationship with TE heroes? So the ETPs already answered this a while ago. So how about you EFPs?
Yeah, I find ENTJs extremely easy to get along with. I think maybe like we have the same functions, so like we have a very similar communication style. I don't really have to hold back anything. Sometimes I'm a little bit like, just chill.
Just
we'll get there. We'll get to the outcome. Let's enjoy the process together. But I feel like ENTJs are like, I don't know, in my experience, yeah, they are outcome focused, but they can enjoy the process in like a way I can because they have that SE third function. Yeah, ESTJs I struggle sometimes to understand, but I like generally like I haven't met an ESTJ I haven't like got along with, so I don't really have a strong opinion about that, I guess.
I love TE dogs. ENTJs and ESTJs. It's actually funny because a lot of times when I first meet ESTJs, I think they're actually ENFPs, and I have to like get to know them a while before I realize they're not. Because I think when we start communicating, it's very easy for us to get into that like jokey side. Because I'm always trying to joke and be like silly, and they like that like freedom. It's when we get into a group situation that I start to realize that they are not an ENFP and that they are definitely a TE Dom because of the way they talk to other people and how every other person except for me reacts to them. Like INTPs, especially with the ESTJ, is a poor combination. They definitely tend to get frustrated by them. But I really like especially in a workplace scenario, I really like working with both because I have all these ideas of things that I want to do, and they're like, all right, this is how we can actually make it happen. And they're also good at delegation and making sure all the tasks are appropriately given to each person. So it's really good for like task management as well. So they are like my favorite people to learn from, actually.
Yeah, and I find that in the same way we were saying about FE users earlier, that they get energy from helping other people and they really just love it. I feel like ESTJs and ENTJs get that energy from doing things for other people and being like, okay, here's this thing you want, how are we going to make it happen?
Yeah.
My brother's an ESTJ, and I can just be like, oh, there's this kind of like technological thing that I need to set up, but I kind of just can't be like, can you come over and help me? And he'll be like, yeah, sure. Like, loves doing it, loves showing love in that way. And not that I take advantage of him like too much in that area, but like it's so nice just seeing him give and like show love to people in that way as well, and he gets such energy from it, which is awesome. And it's funny because what you said about ESTJs and how you feel like they're ENFPs when you first meet them, I think the same thing about ENTJs. When I meet them at a party or social situation, I'm like, you're an ESFP, because they're so in that SE, they can activate that SE and just have such a good time. So yeah, that's interesting.
SE child is one of my favorite functions. It's very fun for SE heroes to play.
Yeah.
To show them.
Yeah. And so how is your tertiary function childish?
I think the number one thing I am told by people is that I bite off more than I can chew, and that my plans are great, but they don't think about reality, because my TE is like, all right, here's how we can get this done, let's do it. And I've just neglected, facts and reality around said decisions, but I tried.
Yeah, sometimes I find that with TE, sometimes I just misjudge how effective it's going to be, or that it's the best way to do something. So I'll be like this, and I'll really believe in the moment that this is the right thing to do to get something done. And then I realize, oh, it wasn't, or I haven't thought about all these other possibilities of ways to get it done. And then I can be really stubborn in that and like unbudging in that way. And then if someone tries to change that, I start to get really stressed. And I think another thing that's like childish about it is I really can disregard people's feelings when it comes out, because I'm just like, get it done, be blunt. And then I always get upset at myself for that later when I've calmed down out of that TE state.
Yeah. They call it TE foot in mouth. So sometimes TE will say something overly blunt and abrasive.
Yeah.
Yep. This is wrong. Fix it, please.
Yes.
And how about the FE children?
Because the child function it's really more just present in the moment. I am only empathetic with people who are directly in front of me. And I have a hard time having empathy for a situation that I'm hearing about, that it's like so-and-so feels this way. I'm like, I don't care. But if that person was directly in front of me and expressing this feeling, that I could access that. So that's childish. I used to be a real flirt and a real charmer, but now I only flirt with my boyfriend.
You're dating site now. You gotta be in the play.
Now I only flirt with my boyfriend, or I try to, but I know I can be a charmer. I love to give a good compliment.
EPs are known for coming off as flirty either accidentally or purposefully, and being playful and charming.
Okay, I don't know if I can necessarily directly relate to the question. Reason being, again, I'm talking unofficial objective personality. There's a notion of a jumper, which means a person that actually inverts second and third function. I'm not sure if I am or not. I'm not sure. Joyce may have an opinion on that. It's out of context. I feel actually might be age dependent. I'm fairly well integrated. TI and FE are almost on par in my own subjective perception. And I'm not even sure which one I'm leading with in which context. I think in a social context, I might be more FE than TI. So I can't fully relate to the question. However, if I stretch and look back, at a very young age, FE could potentially make you try too hard to be liked by people or a group and then do things to please. But I don't think I suffered from that very long, if at all, probably. So I don't feel that it would be childish. It's actually something that I use a lot, rarely to manipulate, but to understand people. It just gives you an insight of how somebody works and to kind of help them be at ease. So I can't fully relate to the question. I don't know. I might be just childish. Maybe FE is just delusion. I just want to be liked so bad I can't admit to it that I don't like it.
Yeah, that begs the question. So I'm wondering, what is the childlike side of all of you? What part of you is the most like a child in a positive way?
Every part of me. Just like my entire personality, I feel. I can't separate. Like literally last night I was out playing on a play equipment. Like, I don't know if you call them play equipments in America, but like
Oh, like a playground.
jungle gym playground. Yeah, I saw a playground. I can't walk past a playground without going on it. I was doing that last night.
I feel a similar draw to the playgrounds. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say in general, the desire to play, and I think I'll be 100 years old if I get there. I still want to play, and I mean, I have a nephew, I have kids. I don't mind if I want to play in a jungle gym. I'll play in a jungle gym. If I want to play a silly video game, I'll do so. But I do so without shame, because you're old when you kind of set in your ways and say, I can't do this because what? Social norms? I mean, unless you have a physical ailment that prevents you from doing it, just go try it, right? And so I'm going to die a child if I can.
I love that.
I like to play too. I can't go past like a hat store without going in and like.
Yes.
That's fun. Or any store where I could do a little bit of dress up and play.
Oh yes, and embody different accents.
Yeah.
If you're with the right person, it's so much fun. But you know what? I'll do it with any person. I'll make them listen to my accents.
Yeah, it won't ruin it for me.
I do accents too.
That's amazing. NE and SE are the most youthful functions. They're the ones that you can equivocate with youthfulness the most. Whereas like the IJs on the other hand, like the opposite spectrum, they're more like the grandpa, the old guy. They're kind of like, with all IJs, they kind of want to be prepared, and that causes them to have a certain type of agedness to them. Whereas the EPs are the most generally youthful, as you saw here in the panel.
I just can hear actual conversations between me and my boyfriend that basically say exactly that. Like, he'll call me such like a child sometimes, and I'll call him an old man. Oh.
So EPs get extensive play, basically.
Yes, extended play.
And I don't think I'll ever change in that regard.
That's amazing. People often lose that as they age and get jaded, but EPs can kind of still invigorate you. Even if they're jaded, they still have that playful side to them, which is amazing.
I feel like it's even got, like I've even become more playful as I've grown up, because I've accepted that that's a part of me. Whereas when I was like early 20s, I was a little bit like, I shouldn't be this childish, and I was trying to be like more mature or whatever. Like, not saying that like having that playful side is not mature. You can be mature, obviously, and be playful. But like now I've accepted it, and MBTI has really helped me to do that. And I just run with it, and it's awesome.
Yeah. I see the EP's divine purpose, or their like what they bring to the ecosystem of the world, is that playful energy to allow people to still have fun in the world, to be able to be more open to more novel things, and to be more like openness. They give people openness. Mm-hmm. And so that's the beauty. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so what is TI like for you? I know we talked about it a bit in this conversation, but anything more to add?
I don't really understand this question.
Yeah, I guess, how does it feel like to be?
You need a definition, right? You need a proper definition of meaning. Yeah, I can't talk about myself. I don't know.
It's a burden. That's what it is.
What makes it burdensome?
I have to address it. You can't not address your parent function. It's the one that, like, if there's something standing out to me that's illogical, doesn't make sense to me, I have to say it. And sometimes that's a real dressing down because it's rather punchy. And sometimes I wish I didn't have to do this. But I like it as well. I really enjoy TI. I enjoy creating logical systems for myself, and the logical analysis and taking it on a huge chain and explaining that chain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm much like it. I have a pretty good relationship with it. I think it's the one tool I trust. It's the thing that I really rely on and trust when it comes to decision making, complex situation. It's my bedrock, and I also like building complex systems. Like I write software for a living. There's some real joy in sort of conceptualizing. It becomes like this Death Star of connections, and the further out you look, it gets fuzzy. But you're like, oh my God, I got to build this thing. I build it a certain way so that 2 years down the road, someone's going to ask me something. I'm going to say, oh yeah, I already put the plumbing in. It's already there. I'm going to charge you anyways, but I kind of built it already. There's some beauty in being able to capture complexity, hold it in your mind, look at it from all angles and say, that's beautiful and I trust it. It's consistency. That's where I have the thing with FI. FI is so subjective. You might feel very strongly about one thing. Another FI user might have the opposite opinion. TI says, these are my assumptions, which are very important for me. Assumptions are definitions. And from what gets you from here to the end is logic. And most people, I would say most TI users, unless they're delusional and not good at it, you give them the same inputs, they come up with pretty much the same solution. It's reliable.
That's true.
Right?
I've been thinking a lot about that lately, that TI users are less variable in this aspect than FI users. That's so interesting.
That's really true. And so the Daisy INTP, I wonder if it's an anything to be fascinated with those small, powerful moments. I would argue that, as we were talking about earlier, youthfulness, the quality of that, and being fascinated by small, powerful moments would be most correlated with NE and SE, because they're the most young functions. So the element of being fascinated with the small, powerful moments, I think a person would be tapping into their NE or SE at that moment, experiencing that. That would be my type of spin on it.
There might be a sub-question in that, though. It's really the question of what's NE, what's SE. I mean, it might be NE driven, but it might just be a bleed-through where this is an SE moment, and by some rare set of circumstance, I can actually jump from NE to SE and have a similar experience in a different domain. Like, I kind of got a feeling that's what she asked, because to me it's SE. I mean, Kristin might know better. Maybe I'm just delusional. But it's sort of, I can cross over to this other world, the thing that I can barely knew. I know it's sort of similar to NE, but man, I'm in the moment, which is what I think SE is all about. I don't know. It's a question. I don't know.
Absolutely. For me, it's just, the experience exists in and of itself, and it stops there. And what the physical life, the energy that I'm getting in the life from that experience is based on the physical experience that it's giving me, like what it's doing to, I guess, my body, and like the relationship I'm having with that person is just the fact that we're immersed completely in the moment, and there's no there doesn't even have to be like some bigger picture, some like subtext going on. It's just kind of like, let's share this thing right now and immerse ourselves, and it doesn't have to mean anything. I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
I totally relate to that, though.
Yeah.
There are shared qualities.
Yeah, there are so many shared qualities, but the experience, the experience stops in and of itself at the experience. It's not like the bigger picture at all. Yeah. It's just, Yeah, so because we're placing, as SE users, we're placing so much value in just the tangible experience. Like that's where the value lies for us. I don't know if Kate agrees with that in terms of like the SE experience, but
yeah, I do.
Yeah. Does the NE Dom value more the theoretical extrapolation? I'm curious. That was just a question.
I've actually put a lot of thought into this topic. A couple of years ago, I distinctly remember spending a lot of time thinking about like what specific memories stand out to me and trying to figure out why they in particular stand out to me. Like very specific moments I can almost experience as if they're happening right now, like visually, and but for some reason, like I cannot just accept it for that like beautiful moment. There has to be like some kind of reason for it that I need to understand, like where these memories are coming from. I think most of my analysis goes into like the memories of things, I think, like the memories of these events, to try to understand their impact, I think.
Interesting. Now I have the question, which one of you feels like a floating head on a daily basis? Like feels like a kind of head, ideas, mind.
What's a body?
What's a body? Yeah.
No, I don't relate to that.
I can feel that a lot without judging it. I sometimes do things. I'm like, oh, I get engulfed in something. I read something and I forget about the world around me. It's all in my head. And sometimes I find, like, I get involved in something and I think, oh my God, I've had all these ideas and thoughts. I look at it, 2 minutes have passed.
Yeah.
It's like a time warp. Sometimes in a work context, somebody comes to me with a question. There's like major brains. I can do this, and just to do the work, it would take me 2 or 3 weeks. But I feel like I conceptualized all this, and
yes.
like, okay, now I have to build it.
Yes.
It's so frustrating because you went there, and now you have to walk there again before you took your racing car. But it's like time warp sometimes. It's crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if for the intuitive, the ideas feel more real or more exciting than the reality itself.
I think it's like an addictive thing. Like your mind is just, well, at least for me, it's more addictive to go into my thoughts than it is to like focus on what's around me. Like what's around me isn't really changing that much, and when it is changing a lot, it can sometimes actually be a little bit like distracting. But still, like then I will kind of like retreat into my mind a little bit, I think, when that happens, or want to like have a conversation and talk about it rather than necessarily doing anything.
Yeah. Most of the excitement is in the ideation. Yeah. So I'm wondering, for the SE DOMs, do you ever feel like floating heads? Like just a head that is meant to generate ideas?
I mean, even the fact that you're describing it as like, even when you were saying, do you ever feel like a floating head? I'm like, I'm never thinking of anything in my reality as any kind of like figurative idea. Like the fact that I would even think I feel like a floating head. That's not a reality because I'm not a floating head. So I would never just be like, oh, I feel like this floating head right now. It's like the reality is what I feel like right now. And sorry, reality is subjective, right? But okay, so reality for me
is it?
The tangible world is my reality. So I would never be like, I've never thought I feel like a floating head. I'm like, in fact, I would say I'm super grounded and just always present in my entire body and aware of what's going on. There's hardly anything going on in my head like most of the day. Like, there probably are, but like, I'm not like abstractly thinking about things when there's something immediately in front of me that's taking my attention in the physical realm.
What did you do on the marshmallow test?
What's the marshmallow test?
Oh my goodness.
That test with the children, right? Oh, that would be a struggle for me. Oh, I would struggle with that. I've never done it, obviously.
Let's just put marshmallows in front of Kristin now.
I could do it if I knew there was going to be some like payoff. Like I've got better at waiting for things. But yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Kate? What is your relationship with floating heads? Do you ever feel like one? Do you ever not feel like one?
Yeah, I get lost in my thoughts all the time, every day. And I've always been somebody I wouldn't really call it a floating head so much as absent-minded, to the point where I will say something to someone and then not even know that I have like asked the question and that they've responded, and then I'll ask it again as if it's for the first time. And no, I don't have dementia. It's just I'm just not paying attention at all. And I don't know. I've always had trouble with focusing though, and this was a hard thing with typing me, because I don't feel like somebody who is the master of the physical world. Like, I am not paying attention a lot of the time. Like, they built a new apartment complex on the road that I take to go to the gym every single day. And I just noticed it. Like, and it's like, oh, how long has that been there? It's like they've been working on this for months, and I never saw it. But it's just like, that's part of like your daily surroundings too. But I kind of like to be lost in my head, especially when I'm driving or whatever. I'm just on autopilot. And people call me out for making videos in my car, but I'm like, I can do it, whatever, don't worry. But yeah, I do feel like that. I would describe SE, instead of it's supposed to be you notice everything in the environment, I would call it more perceptive than observing.
I definitely don't notice everything in my environment either, for sure. No. Details can totally go over my head.
Yeah, I can notice. The thing is, when I do put my attention to something physical, it's very intense. And I notice everything about it.
Everything.
The thing is, I find the physical world to be so distracting, because when I look at something, I want to look at all of it, that if I'm going to think, I literally let my eyes blur over. Not when I'm driving, okay? But like in my house, I'll let my eyes blur over when I'm thinking, because otherwise the physical world will catch me too much and I won't be able to go in.
Yeah, I've often thought of like SE as like a kind of like really good at the tangible world. So able to block it off when you need to. So when you need to focus on something specific, one part of the physical world, you can block off the rest and not be distracted by it. But then you can also be like driving, for instance, and if something's on your mind or you're thinking about something, you might not be like observing that new apartment complex or whatever, but you are naturally trusting your ability to still be competent at driving. And I just never ever get overwhelmed by the physical world. Like I'm not always observant, but it never overwhelms me. It's never too much sensory data. I can choose to block it out or embrace it all.
Yeah, I frequently block it out. I have a thing like when I go to a checkout counter in the US, there's always a bunch of stuff up there because they're trying to get you to buy something last second. And I get so distracted by that because it's like, look at all these new options. Look at all these things that I need to look at individually now. And I'm like, no, I need to focus, like get in, get out. Yeah. So I just block it.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
I can also blur out reality, but it's more so because I'm focused so much on what I'm thinking about that I forgot to keep paying attention to reality. It's not so much intentional as it is consequential. Same with sounds, too. I even hear things in delay sometimes, like someone will say something to me, and I'll finish thinking about what I'm thinking, and then I'll hear what they say, even though they've already said it.
Cool stuff. And so, what is TI like for you? EFPs. I'm not sure if you have answered.
That question's been around. We kind of answered it, sort of, but if maybe EFI...
Just a bane of my existence.
I'm with you.
That's what I would say.
With you.
If we didn't have to know how things worked and we could just make things happen, it would just be nice, you know? Just be really nice.
100%.
Absolutely. What does bane of your existence mean? Like, what about it is that?
Like, when you're in because like if I'm addressing logic, it would normally be in I want to get something done mentality, so I'm focused on the outcome, and TI is getting in the way of getting to an outcome, I feel like. Like, for example, if you're using Excel, there are formulas that you can use, and you need to understand how those formulas work in order to make them work. So because it's such a headache to learn how to use the formulas, what I'll do is I learn the one formula I know, and I can use like, okay, so maybe I know like 5 formulas. I can mix and match these formulas in an infinite number of ways, but if you try to teach me a new formula, it's like a painful process. Like it actually frustrates me a lot to learn how to do the new thing. But once I got it, I can replicate it and I can then integrate it with these other ones that I know. But learning a new one is definitely stressful.
For sure. Very interesting. And so if someone says you must do one option now, how would you all react? You only have one choice.
Read between the lines.
I'd be like, why?
That's a dating question, right? It's like,
Yeah,
first of all, you must one now? Wait a second. Who says so?
Oh, there'd be so many questions.
Yeah. That's the best way of getting a spiteful response. What? I don't know.
Would Boris, with the fact that they use must, trigger you the most?
Absolutely.
I love that.
That's who. Don't tell me what I must do. Give me options. I can think for myself. These are real trigger words, right? Now and must.
Yeah.
Wow.
What if it's like your boss in the workplace?
I'm self-employed and I do not like dealing with them. You sometimes have to go around. It's like, well, really, let's see. What do we need to achieve here? Let's not rush into something. That's why I've always been pretty much self-employed or a consultant, because I would have a really hard time if I have one boss to depend on. I mean, I have to sell. I'm a consultant. I create solutions in unusual circumstances. It's a good place to be in. But if you have somebody just telling you, stamp this, and it's like, it would drive me nuts. I don't think I would quit, or I would be depressed or suicidal. Well, probably homicidal.
Oh, no.
I would just leave. I mean, I just can't do that.
Like that guy in Wanted who he works at that office and then he gets the whole gun and he I think he takes his keyboard and hits someone with it or something. I don't know, something like that.
That's
I mean, I put something in the coffee, the whole office can get sick, and then I just go missing.
Oh my god.
Just an idea. I mean, I'm joking, but it's hell. Obviously, they were baiting us because they know all of you were correct.
Yeah, that's the trigger to tell an EP you only have one option. You now must do it. How do you feel about your last function?
Ladies first.
Now, ladies first, but with that question beforehand, you were so triggered you had to be like, why?
I'm making up for it.
Are you triggered by this question?
Oh, me?
A little
Kristin.
A little NI doesn't hurt. Sorry, I thought.
No. I mean, yeah, I like NI. I think I have a good relationship with it in the sense that I've grown up now to the point where I have a lot of SE data that can feed my NI to know, to be able to create these patterns and possibilities for me. I don't always follow it. It's not important to me a lot of the time, having those patterns and plans and possibilities, but in my life and creating those for myself. But when I am passionate about something or want to do something, then I can totally activate it. For instance, running my YouTube channel, that's something I'm passionate about. So I'm able to think of all these possibilities and work out these patterns for how it's going to go. And I love doing that. But I have to use my I use my SE in in conjunction with it. I can't separate NI and just use it by itself. Yeah. The data needs to support whatever patterns I'm creating.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
For me, NI is the source of my greatest anxiety and also my greatest security as I learn to harness it. Because I'm constantly afraid of if there are inconsistencies in my present reality, then I'm worried about what that means for my future. But then I'm learning to trust my intuition and to like literally do practices to try to access NI, like through meditation. And when I do that, I'm able to trust in the intuition and even to see the future, see that final outcome that I'm going to be working for, and see that like I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be okay. So it's something that I love and I hate. It gives me, everything. It's a great superpower, and it's a great opportunity of growth that we've all been given.
For sure.
Yeah.
I have a somewhat similar relationship with my SI. I don't know if I'd quite go as extreme as anxiety, but it definitely causes me stress because, you know, as an E, you need SI to actualize your ideas, otherwise they're just ideas forever. And there's like a certain level of there's like certain ideas that you really just want to make happen. But then there's also just like general sensory care, such as like, you know, taking care of your body, you know, like making sure you're clean, making sure your room is organized, like these kinds of things. And the only way that I've ever found it to be effectual is by building habits. And the problem therein lies that you want to break your habits because you're tired of doing the same thing the same way all the time, but that's the only way that you can make sure that you get this outcome so that you can focus on your NE. And so there's this like constant pull with yourself of your own self-structure, which is, you know, it's fun.
There's this amazing phrase Boris had for it, and it was selectively anal slob. So it's like your SI can make you very selectively anal about certain things.
Yes.
I love that.
I just branded myself. That'll follow me around. Clients will say, "Oh, that's what you're
selectively anal."
I would second that since I said it. I do appreciate SI, but it's sort of almost like the slave function. It's a thing that gets things done. I know it's needed. It's a store of information that I think I can go into and rummage. So I have selectively good memory too, at least that's what I want to remember, but I don't value it as much as I see others. As in, I don't like using it. It's sort of like cleaning up all the time, but I see its value and need for it. It's just the less loved child, the one that I really show around and I'm not as fond of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is your phobia?
Clowns.
Shut up. I don't believe it.
Is that legit?
No, he's true.
I was about to unpack that.
Like
Small
the
children.
ENTPs sometimes, but small children.
Small children. Interesting.
Who said that? Who said small children? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, how come?
What is it? Yeah.
They make me very nervous. I don't have any idea how to be around them. I just get very like stiff and I don't know how to engage them, but I know that the whole world is expecting that I know how. And especially like as a woman, I'm expected to have like this maternal side that's just hasn't manifested itself yet. And it makes me very uncomfortable to have that shown to other people. So it's more of like people's expectations around how I'm supposed to know what to do around kids. And I'm supposed to be like, oh, yay, let's play. And I wasn't very good at like being creative when I was a small child. So like now I don't know how to engage them.
Would you say that's because you don't have a lot of experience with
Yes.
children?
Yeah. And literally, okay, I mean, I'll open up a little. My boyfriend has a small child. And so this is something that like has come, and I'm struggling because I don't know what to do. And so I'm going to be going, and this sounds so freaking weird. I know somebody who runs a daycare, and I'm going to go for like an hour a week and observe small children.
That's so practical of you.
No, I think that's great.
That's fantastic.
That's sort of like CBT, like cognitive.
Yeah.
So I know because I just don't know what they're like. I don't have any experience. So.
Yeah. But try interacting with them. Like, you're going to interact with them too, or just observe them? Just be that person with a notepad.
I want to just watch for a while. I've always been I've always been stand back and let me observe before I'm comfortable jumping in. It's like, that's my whole thing. I don't know what to do now. Like,
I think the beauty is they don't judge you, and you'll be fine, right? They have no preconceived notions.
Yeah, they're not judging me. It's the adults that I'm afraid of.
Okay, got you.
I just don't like it in a social situation. I become so awkward.
That's an important distinction, actually. You're probably okay playing with a kid, but you don't want the others to say, what was she doing? What a weird girl.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to be like, well, let me take your little kid alone, where I'm more comfortable. Like, so, yeah, it's the social problem.
Well, I think it's great that you're making a plan about how to get better at that. And if it's any consolation, I actually relate to what you have just said prior to having experiences with small children, because I don't think I was naturally good at it, necessarily, but I didn't have experience with it, so I was terrified. And then it took me, I went overseas and I taught kindergarten for 2 years, and then that just the experience with having, within a few weeks, I was like, oh, okay, they're not as scary. It's they don't hold grudges. It's one day, that you might upset them and they've forgotten about it. And oh, I just love children. They're so beautiful. They're so innocent and pure.
I think I can get there eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I've noticed is just you be really extra expressive in your face and your body, and they love it. Just be an idiot. They love it.
Interesting.
Generally speaking.
I wonder if there's a slight correlation with being a thinker woman too, and being slightly less likely to feel comfortable around small children too. It's just a hypothesis. Because one of the ways that you can ask someone to figure out if they're a thinker woman is, do you feel like you're a little different than most women? Because most women tend to be Fs, they tend to be feeling types. And so one of those ways that, one of the many questions you can ask to kind of parse that out is, do you feel like you're a little different than other women? And what Kate mentioned earlier about empathy, and about how if you're hearing a story about someone, you won't really, care that much. You have to know the person to feel that empathy. And that's, as a thinker woman, that might be a little less common than a feeler woman response, which is the typical response, which would be feeling, no matter if it's a story told to you or anything you watch online, feelers tend to get moved way more easy. They tend to get emotionally moved way more easy. And so
it's something I've been shamed for. And I was always called really cold. Especially by members of my own family, because I just don't have that natural inclination. So I think that's where a lot of the fear comes from as well, just being shamed for not being the way I'm supposed to be.
Supposed to?
Yeah.
A trigger word.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You must be this way. Wait for Boris's reaction. Wow. You must.
I've always been shamed for not having feelings or projecting feelings that I'm supposed to in a given situation.
That sucks.
And
that's horrible.
Yeah.
People shouldn't do that. That's why the Myers-Briggs typology or Jungian theory is so important, because you learn that our differences do not make us inferior or superior to other people. They are beautiful. They're all beautiful. 100%. Yeah. So it's celebrating the differences between us all. There was an original book written by Isabel Mayers, and it was called Gifts Differing. And the purpose of that was to highlight everyone's gifts. Like the purpose of type was to celebrate what everyone brings to type, the beauty, the inherent beauty that often can go missing, because it's almost like human perception. It's very easy to celebrate the strengths that we have because we can see it the most easy because we know what our strengths are. And it's kind of like when you see a blue car, like when you own a blue car, you see blue cars everywhere, right? And then you're like, why is everyone buying the same car, right? The same goes to our perception of the things that we value. Sometimes it's easier to spot people with our gifts. So we're like, I like that person because I can see things in common that I have with that person. So often people who are a little different get overshadowed, their strengths get overlooked. And so one of the amazing traits of typology is you are given these names for certain strengths that you can appreciate in other people. And when you can label it, you can then see it more often in people. And you can go like, oh, that's TE. You know, there are beautiful things about that too. And so I see type as a beauty filter. It allows you to see people more beautifully. And so,
yeah.
Phobias, other than small children. What is everyone's phobia?
Ladies first. No,
Michelle?
Yeah, sure. My phobia is of apocalyptic events of any kind.
Wow.
Zombies, nuclear, anything that could end the world is, an asteroid. Man, I watched this movie. It was called Melancholia, and the whole point is there's like a planet that like whiplashes past Earth and like ends up like colliding with Earth. Sorry, spoilers. You guys probably will never watch this movie. It's very slow. It's like a very melodramatic. It's Melancholia. It matches the name. Most people who care about EPs probably won't watch it, but we'll see. And like from then on, it's been like really hard not to fear like that as a possibility, or even like just any kind of apocalyptic event that could deconstruct society is like definitely a fear for me.
Don't know if it's a real phobia. It's basically being trapped by circumstance, predictably so, and knowing exactly how things are going to go, and there's no exit, there's no option. I've been in a situation like this without going into detail. Like my dad made some really bad decisions which screwed me over school-wise. I took a year off, even though I did well. And I could see that business fail, but I knew it was a dreadful 2-year long death march. And so being trapped by circumstance, predictably so, and having no other options. That's lack of options is, I think it's my phobia, which is consistent with type. Now, to be more specific, things I'm concerned about without losing sleepless nights. There's one thing, there's something called an EMP. Are you familiar with that? It's crazy. I mean, basically there are two sources. One could be a tiny nuclear device detonated 2 or 3 over the US, or a electron.
It's like a C. Oh my gosh, I just was talking about this. Cosmic something.
Cosmic ray. Cosmic ray is one thing. Something coronal mass
coronal mass ejection. That's what it is.
And it would cost about something like $10 billion to prevent this from happening in North America. That's the cost to prevent from happening. If it happens, it's the end of civilization as we know. 90% of the US population, Canada population, will die, will vanish, and it will be Mad Max cubed. But nobody does anything about it. I mean, Elon Musk, I almost feel like getting to him saying, Elon, do you want to make this one of your missions? Because you can only get to Mars if there's still people around that are not shooting each other over a piece of beef jerky, right? But it's one of the things that pisses me off the most, that nobody does anything about it. And it's obvious. There's hundreds of scientists saying this could happen, but look at politicians. It's not sexy. Maybe after COVID now it will happen. I really feel like almost starting something. Have you read the book? It's called The One Day After. It's basically an author taking up the topic, turning into a novel, which she hopes will become a movie, so that people eventually see, hey, are you willing to spend $10 insurance on your $500,000 life? then kick the right people in the nuts. I mean, that's one thing that I feel strongly about. It's not a phobia, but it's a real concern, because if it happens, it's too late.
Can we just appreciate for a second how the NEs went so broad and big with the phobias? and Kate and I are like small children. I was going to say like, oh, I don't have many phobias, but heights sometimes. When I'm not like
practical and present in your everyday life instead of
present in exactly. If we were to go broad, I could probably come up with some more phobias, like also being trapped and that kind of thing. But yeah, I just love how both of our brains went to just completely different.
A literal thing in my life right now.
Yeah, I'm like, some heights, like when I don't feel safe, heights can sometimes scare me. And then Michelle's like, apocalyptic world-ending events.
I mean, we could go to like dying alone, but I didn't want to be a downer.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is quite the contrast for sure. And so if you could experience the mindset and functions of another type for one day, which would you pick and why?
INTJ. I would write down everything. I would just work on my business for a day and write down all of the things that I thought of that day.
That's so interesting, because mine is INTP.
Yeah.
Yeah. INTP, completely different functions.
So far. But it'd be interesting to do INFP. I think I could learn the most. You know?
I second that. Just because it's a type that is at some level most alien to me, experiential. Maybe ISFP as well, but definitely FI don't.
Yeah.
I would probably be an ESTP. I think that would be a great experience for a day. And I would be able to look at what I'm doing on a short-term notice and see whether or not that'll work, because most ideas I come up with are fine in the long term if all of the stuff coming up to it actually happens. And so it would be nice to have an ESTP perspective for a day.
Yeah, I'd choose INTP just to work out what's going on there.
Truly endlessly fascinated and bewildered by TI, you ESFPs.
Absolutely.
And so, question based on the child question. Anyone relate to getting underestimated because of the endless childish energy? Ever had people think you haven't experienced the real world yet because of it?
Yes. All the time, every single day. I mean, maybe you can't tell in this, but I have a pretty young face, and I used to be a high school teacher, and I would get mistaken for a student all the time and told that I couldn't park in the faculty lot. But yeah, people definitely do underestimate me. It happened in the corporate world all the time, because I am quite energetic and bubbly. Maybe not as much as I used to be. I feel like I'm the least energetic and bubbly of this bunch. And that's saying a lot.
Would you all say it's a trait of EPs to be energetic and bubbly?
Energetic, yes. Bubbly? Not necessarily.
Depends on how you define bubbly. Sorry to do that.
Yeah, let's define the terms.
Effervescence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Light.
anyone else? Yeah. Because I find you all to be energetic, playful, charming, likable, charismatic.
It's never been to my disfavor. Again, I've been self-employed. I actually like it when people underestimate. Actually, maybe in university. It's a long story. Like I went from being not a lazy ass, but I was a top 15 student, and then my dad screwed me over, and I realized it's actually worthwhile to study the day before the day, and I went to first or second in the class afterwards. But I kind of like being underestimated, right? There's a spite in me when I'm saying, oh yeah, there was a team's project, Where me and an INTJ friend who also got booted for a year, they're like, oh yeah, you're the underdogs. We picked our favorites. Like, all right, that's a great position to be in. You can only do better. So there's sort of a spite to it. I will not change. I will spite you and say, let's see what happens in the end. So it's not something that I kind of welcome. It's like, okay, let's play, let's tango. I wouldn't take it away. I mean, I'm not regretting it. That's why I'll die like a child when I'm hopefully, I don't know, older. Not tomorrow, hopefully. You never know. I got my COVID vaccine. Everybody vaccinated here?
Whoop whoop. I am.
I got stabbed 2 days ago.
Nice. Hopefully by a needle and not by a knife.
Well, it was a knife, a sharp knife, not a butter knife, because that hurt the most.
Oh yeah.
It's like Joyce is like, actually it was a knife.
She's like, oh, about that.
Yeah. I step up and then my abdominal is like bleeding, like I'm a fountain. I'm kidding.
Joyce, is blue your favorite color? Because you talk about a blue car and you have a blue top. Is that because of color rendering, or is there a slight preference?
I don't have preferences. All cars are great.
No, do you have a color preference?
Oh, I mean, no, I love all colors. They're all great.
What's your favorite?
Are you worried about offending a color?
Yeah, that's Casey.
I can't say I don't like purple.
Reading off a script there.
I will be so offended if purple is not your favorite color. Oh my god.
I once coached an INFJ, and she really loved tea. And so I asked her, what is your favorite type of tea? And she's like, you know what? I love all types of tea. And I'm like, no, bullshit. You're like a tea advocate. Like, you're a tea connoisseur. You must have a tea that you love more than other teas. But I asked her, like, you for sure have a preference. And then she's like, yeah, I do. And then she told me. And then I'm like, why didn't you tell me you had a preference? And she was like, I was afraid I would offend people who liked different types of tea. And I'm like,
oh my god.
What? That's the FE thing we were talking about.
Yes.
Vacation. Yeah, she lied about having a preference with tea because she didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Mm-hmm. And so
what is your favorite color? That was a really good way of getting out of that question.
You're not getting away from the question, Joyce.
Is blue up there? Is it in the top 16?
I like gold.
Ooh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not a color.
My favorite Pokemon is Umbreon because I like the gold and the black combination.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
I think it's beautiful. And so,
you know, I don't know if I've ever been necessarily underestimated because of my energy, because all of my siblings had ADHD and I'm a middle child, so my older two siblings went through that. So I worked really hard to maintain my energy so that I wouldn't have to get put on ADHD pills. So I would say that I actually come off a lot more calm than probably the average ENFP. But I do get underestimated because of my naivety, which is a childlike trait, but not necessarily due to energy level. But like believing in people too much, trusting them too much, thinking too much of people, having too much faith in people, that kind of stuff gets me underestimated.
Plus, I think you can have a child's energy as long as you, I believe I have another part, which is almost like, I'm not saying ENTJ-like, but in a business context, I mean, I joke, but you can also be, okay, let's get this done. So as long as you have something to complement it, you just have a broader spectrum. I don't think it has to work against you. It actually might even work in your favor. You can joke around, and then you can transition to a serious exchange. So I don't think it's a downside having it, as long as it's not the only thing you have. I don't know.
Fascinating. Michelle, your answer to that question, you saying naivete, I think a lot of ENFPs could relate to that. I'm wondering if other EPs relate to that, but I know it's a ENFP problem. I know ENFPs get portrayed as naive a lot because of that childlike quality. And it almost every ENFP has told me that story before. And so I think it's a universal phenomenon. But I'm wondering with the other EPs, do they struggle with that at all? Like with people thinking, like assuming naivete? Or is it just an ENFP thing? I'm curious.
I don't know if I relate specifically to that. Some people have thought I'm naive, but not more so than I think anyone else would receive. I do relate to the actual topic of the question in that, like that, I guess childish energy, more so like my bubbliness. Like I've had situations where people have thought I've only made it ahead in certain elements of my life because I'm so personable and like bubbly and I'm like, no, like I have brains and intellect and I can do things. Like, I was a kindergarten teacher and I was like, kind of like well regarded by my bosses and like given certain benefits that other teachers weren't, and then the other teachers sort of were like, oh, it's just because you're a clown, like you're silly, like you're like a child, so it works well for kindergarten teaching. So like, yeah, stuff like that has happened for sure.
Interesting. And so do you find it easy to get along with SI heroes? ISFJs, ISTJs?
Yeah, I do.
SI DOMs are some of my favorite people. They're just so sweet and sensitive. No, I mean, ISTJs aren't necessarily sensitive, but there's just something about ISTJs that when you put me alone with another ISTJ, I've never not clicked with an ISTJ, and I don't think I've ever not clicked with an ISFJ either. There's just like a natural synergy because I think I like their SI and they like my NE, so we tend to have really good conversations because I'll bring out more of their like philosophical side, because I do think SI DOMs like talking about philosophical things, but they really care about the people that are close to them in their life, so they're gonna want to bring back all conversations to what they care about and their experiences, but they will go into those philosophical territories, and we can have really great conversations that are kind of balanced between that experience and the philosophy.
Ladies?
Okay. I think I get along well with SI and just in general. I really don't find that I have conflict with any particular perceiving function. I like the way SI heroes talk. To me, when they're speaking, it always sounds like I'm in history class and I'm reading a letter from the Civil War. Like there's like a looking back to it. I don't know. It's like there's an antiquity to the way that they speak that I really enjoy. I would say that I probably get along more with the ISFJs than ISTJs from my experience, because I appreciate how they're looking at things from a different perspective than me, but we're arriving at the same place. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate. I have quite a few close ISFJ and ISTJs in my life, and I really enjoy like the way that they communicate, especially ISTJs. I find it very easy to get along with. I enjoy that they're blunt, like straight to the point. You don't have to worry about like ulterior motives with them. They're just so straight on, which I so appreciate. And I also find with SI DOMs that they can access that SE. Well, maybe not SE like the same way we would, but like I can sort of inspire them to come and be part of an SE moment, and it'll just be that moment. It doesn't have to mean anything more for them either, and we can just have fun together. So I often find with ISFJs and ISTJs, my sense of humor works really well with them, because my sense of humor is just really like stupid. Just all about the banter, bit slapstick, you know. So it's great.
Yeah. What I love about SI heroes, I have an ISTJ friend, and she makes sure to stay in contact with me. I have a lot of friends who just fly off the radar. Like after a while, they just don't care about me. But my ISTJ friend remembers me, and she hits me up every so often. And I'm like, wow, you're so consistent and loyal and dedicated as a friend. That. I love that. Yeah. And my ISTJ friend is the one who reminded me that I had to do taxes. And when I was getting tardy with it, she's like, I'll do your taxes. And I'm like, blessing, absolute blessing.
That actually... Oh, I'm sorry. Were you going to keep going?
Yeah, my ISTJ friend is so straight up, like what Kristin was saying. Like one time I got false lashes and she's like, don't waste your money on that. Like, it was just like so straight up, so to the point, and I'm like, wow. She doesn't sugarcoat, but it's amazing. So yeah, Michelle.
Oh, it's just a stupid small comment, but one of my coworkers is an SI Dom, and he will say good morning every single day that he works, pretty much as soon as he comes in, to just about everyone. Someone would come to me and they're like, Peter started saying good morning to me every morning. I'm like, yeah, he does that.
Yeah, I mean, I second all this. They're so authentic, genuine, and I mean, predictable in sort of a nice sense. There is no hidden agenda. They don't play games. Now, this may be a prejudice that you don't often find them in super high management positions, which I think is good, because if somebody is a decision maker at a client and the guy in charge seems to be an ISTJ, they tend to be so conservative that you come with the smallest idea, they're like, oh, no, that's not how we used to do things. But you rarely find that. And generally, when you deal with them, I enjoy it. And they appreciate a certain degree of idea generation within a certain scope. But they're open, they're friendly, no agenda. And I love WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Right? Oops, $20. What was that? Oops.
The $28 was towards your pizza fund because
thank you.
Eating you.
Thank you, Cosmic Death.
It's okay, that's my pizza, but what about the rest? We need more than $20.
Yeah, I need to pay for shipping to Australia.
Point. And the COVID checks, it has to quarantine. You have to freeze.
No, we're grateful. We're grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely. If you could send a message to the whole world, what would it be?
All right, Ennies.
Watch out for EMP. Talk to your local politician. Make sure they fix the grid before it's too late. Look at what COVID did to us. This was trillions, and you don't spend $4 billion to get something that even works. 1% dies right now. 90% will be gone in 3 weeks if we have an EMP. Talk to your local politician.
Love it.
It's not just me.
I would say that we could get a whole lot more done in this world to make the world better, and better pretty universally, not just for some, but for everyone, if we could set aside our ego and discuss things and appreciate other perspectives a little better and be open to hearing those other perspectives, because even if someone disagrees with you, there's probably a reason that's valid for why they disagree, and you need to find that so you can find your compromise. And if we were a little bit better at compromising, the world would just be so much better. So that's my message to the world. You what?
I'll vote for you if you go to politics, as long as you support EMP as a.
I already I had like a 30-minute conversation with one of my coworkers who I think might be an INTP or an ENTP about the coronal mass ejections just Thursday.
Here's something that's a question, and I don't want to go, but it's the idea of extroversion. Do you find there might be a break depending on the functions here, NE versus SE? Do you find one grouping versus the other is more extroverted? Because I find I'm fairly introverted, even though in the social context I kind of try to engage people, but I do need alone time. And I've met extroverts or people that do extroverted things like listening to certain type of music that drive me nuts. I need my quiet time. How about you?
Yeah, I think maybe the extroverted types that also run with an S function, because it's based on like the tangible world, so it's presenting in a more tangible, consistent to other people, present here and now kind of way. I find like ESFJs can present really extroverted a lot of the time. Yeah. And ESFPs as well.
I don't really appear as the typical extrovert when I'm like out in the world, because I'm also pretty low in trait agreeableness, so I don't really find a point in talking to most people. And my boyfriend's much higher in agreeableness, and although he's an introvert, he'll strike up conversations to be polite, and I'm just like, I can't be bothered unless it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Do you think you know his type out of curiosity? I mean,
He's an ISTP.
Oh, nice.
ISTP, yeah. I told you I like those. So.
Yeah, cool.
She collects them like Pokemon.
Yeah. But this question, if you could send a message to the world, I know that I am taking this too literally and this is not how it's meant to be, but to me this is a pointless exercise to do. So I would just tell everybody to download the Type Match app.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to meet local singles in your area,
Locals.
Off the plug.
Joyce, you got the lingo down. How come?
I'm trying to advocate for Type Match.
Joyce, I love your plugs so much.
I wanted
It's so like the opposite of subtle, but I love it.
I thought about calling it Young Singles, but Jung.
Hey!
Oh!
Okay, that would have been amazing.
Oh, incredible.
I would go for the website if you still can. Go grab it. It's like $10 a year. If that's still available as a domain.
Yeah, grab Young Singles.
So out of curiosity, how does the site work? I mean, I'm going to download it, of course, and sign up to one paying plan, of course. But how, I mean, people, what's the logistics of it? You get tested, you have your type, and then you say which types you want to know, or you have events.
No, we have, you do have to take the test to get your type, but we're changing that right now so that you can take the test, but if you don't agree with the results of the test, then you can choose what type you think you are, because tests are imperfect, including mine, but it's just not going to be verified by our test. So then you get that, and then you can meet people, and we have recommendations as far as compatibility, but we're not forcing you to match with certain personality types. If you know that you get along well with a certain type, even if it's not our recommendation, there's nothing stopping you from going out there and searching for ISFJs or whatever it is that you are after.
Beautiful.
So each type at least discloses one presumed type that they are, so you can make a search criteria. Or can somebody say, I'm XXXXX? Let's find out. Everybody has to say what they believe they are, right?
You can not take the test and not have your personality type, but you're not likely to get many matches because people on there are kind of looking for that information. But we're right now also integrating the Big Five, so we'll also be showing your compatibility scores as far as Big Five aspects, which works in a completely different way.
Rad.
And then more is coming, but I won't keep talking. So.
Awesome. And so a message to the whole world.
I think I'm the only one who has answered this. Well, given that I run with FI second, it would be an impersonal value to myself, and as a Christian, it'd probably have to do with my faith, probably, to spread a message to the whole world. However, I would also probably say something something similar to what Michelle said about as well. Like, I really am bothered by the idea that we would grow up in a world where people are prioritizing whatever's going to make people feel all marshmallowy inside. It's very important to actually understand people's different perspectives to things, because we'll have different brains and different experiences. And in order to get younger people to develop their brains well, they need to be able to see other perspectives and other people's opinions. And we need that challenging of ideas, the TI, challenging of ideas, seeing different perspectives, rather than just sort of you do you, but I'll cancel you if you disagree with me. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty passionate about that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I guess my message to the whole world would be, you are what you stack. it's like you are what you eat, but it's almost like if you have certain thoughts that are repetitive, or you have certain things you do that are repetitive, over time they'll stack, and eventually you become the little things that you do often. And so to be mindful of the little micro things that you incorporate in your life, because they become big things. So for instance, if you have like little minor habits that you don't think mean anything, they don't mean anything in isolation, but the moment that they start compounding with other things, they become something really big. And so a big thing I'm a proponent of is the butterfly effect. And so the world, there are ripple effects that you can't possibly know about. The butterfly effect talks about how when a butterfly flaps its wings, it causes a tsunami or something on the other side of the planet or something. And what it speaks to is that sometimes the little things we do have unwarranted consequences that we can't even predict. It's almost like when you smile when you cross the street, maybe you smile to someone who was suicidal or was having a bad day, and maybe you made their week better, or maybe you made them save their life. You never really know. And so pay attention to all the little ripples you leave, because they contain your beauty the moment that you create a ripple. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many messages to share, aren't there? Like just the power of love as well. It's like love is the answer. It's so cheesy.
Love is really the answer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what challenges did you have at school? How could the education system be better for extroverted perceivers?
Last time I was on this, I went on a very long rant about the education system. So I don't want to make that mistake again. But I didn't have any challenges academically.
Anyone else?
Honestly, I didn't. My biggest challenges were just that I talked too much and I would get in trouble for talking too much, or like passing notes with people or whatever. Like that's really the only thing. And then, you know, some teachers were a little bit more boring in their presentation. I think for an EP, you need interactivity. So like the classes I did the best in were the ones I got to talk to other people and talk to the teacher and ask the questions. And like for example, the reason I understand the algebraic functionality is because it was physically shown to me and I was able to play with blocks, and like one block would represent X and you have to figure out how much does X like how many of the little blocks equal the bigger block, and that kind of like interactive way of learning really helped it make sense to me in a way that it probably would have taken a lot longer to. So I just think interactivity is, and like the ability to ask questions and to engage with other people and talk to other people would be very helpful.
Awesome. Anyone else want to comment on education and how it could have been made better for you?
I was fairly happy. I mean, I went to high school in Germany. I like the system in general, though, and it's only a question of nuance. I'm a conceptual person, so I tend to do well in courses that are not heavy on SI. For example, I mentioned another context once. I had all A's and I had a D in geography because they wanted me to friggin' remember well this and that. I just couldn't be bothered. I still did well, but I had the odd outlier where something just didn't fit because it was so SI heavy. Well, I took two computer science courses, I remember, back to back. First one, I actually got like a 64 because it was all memorization, writing shit on a piece of paper and writing it down. Then came the second course, part B. It was conceptual. I got 100% after the bell curve because that's my preference. So especially in a higher education context, don't make it too SI heavy because you don't go to university to remember shit. You want to have thoughts patterns built. You want to be challenged conceptually. Don't make it about memorization and how quickly you can do the same calculations over and over again. But it's just a nuance thing. I'm not saying it's rampant.
I actually agree with that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, because when you make it rote memorization, you also can't really apply it to reality that well too sometimes, because then it's like, now I memorized all these terms, but what am I going to do in real life with these terms sometimes? With some places. Yeah. And so I have a question for SE users. How do you guys move so naturally? Are you consciously thinking about how to do physical things and you're familiar with the mechanics with it, or is it subconscious?
Do I? Am I moving very naturally right now? Is this something that they've observed?
It's a stereotype.
Also, yeah, Joyce, you have to actually read this question in Shrek's accent. It's a rule I've made about. It's a rule I've made about hello there's comments. Every time I get one, I read it in Shrek's voice.
Ooh, I'd love to hear your Shrek's voice. I'm gonna make you read.
Let's hear the Shrek's voice.
Oh no! What am I doing to myself here? No, I'm not gonna do it.
No, you have to. You set yourself up. Come on.
I know.
No, I'm not gonna do it. With an Aussie Shrek accent, I'm all eyes and ears.
Dude, if I tried right now, it would definitely come out as a terrible Australian accent, which isn't even what kind of accent he has, so I can't do it. You have to help us out.
See, that was a classic example of like me not NIing, like realizing that was a possibility that could happen. I just took that moment and I was like, it's an opportunity for a joke. Couldn't see that, you know, that's where it was going. Anyway, no, in answer to your question, hello there. I do not think consciously about the physical things and the mechanics. It's just naturally happening, I think, moving so naturally. I think I'm pretty good at like being around and manipulating the physical environment, but I'm not consciously thinking about it. I'm just good at it.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. And if you're learning, like with skiing, I have to think about the mechanics of how it works. Or learning a new dance, thinking about the mechanics. But if I'm just walking, no.
Do you SE users ever think people are moving too slowly? Like,
yes.
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially with my TE, I'm just like, I need to go get this thing done as quickly as possible. One thing that annoys me the most is when people walk slowly on the street. It's like, we're all trying to get somewhere.
Walking slowly.
Hilarious. How about the NPs? I'm curious if you think people are ever moving too slowly.
Mentally,
yeah.
You're in a meeting, you're like, wait a sec, did I just lose you? But physically, no. I mean, this question kind of alludes to what I tried to get to earlier, why I respect SE so much. It's something that's not accessible to me directly. I find, for example, Salsa, there's one guy, he's an ESTP. He just has a natural sense of movement. Now, he did martial arts, he does this dance, that dance, that's transferable skill. But they see something, they just repeat it and they can do it. For me, it's, I got to painstakingly take it apart, not learn it or memorize it, but really go through it like in minutia, and then I can eventually learn it. But SE is just, they see it, they do it, it's innate. It's like a separate brain taken over that's subconscious, but really good at movement, mirroring movement, and transferring movement skills.
I don't know if I'd say it's naturally good. I would say that they're more willing to do it at first. Like, they're more willing to just do it, whereas SI in general just needs to analyze and break it down into the little pieces. SE is more like, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try to do it. And that, I think, would lend to finding more people who are talented at doing that. But I think that it is more the willingness and the impulsivity of doing it rather than a natural talent at it, per se.
That's a good point. And it might then feed on itself, because if you do that a lot as a habit, you're building some skills which 3 years down the road might actually make you better.
Like you were saying, the guy with the martial arts, that ability to control your body for martial arts would have to bleed over to dancing, you'd think, because there is a certain level of physical control that comes from that.
It does, and I did both. I had to stop because of a neck injury. So these two are relating, but I think it's a really interesting point. They're just more, they're less judgmental. They try it, and eventually they build up a repertoire with generic, the applicable. So it might just be a mindset. Maybe I was too hesitant to move early, so now. But now it's like, once you own something, then you own it. But some people are quicker at owning something. I think SE to the rest. I don't know.
I'm discerning that you have owned salsa dancing, Boris.
Say what?
I'm discerning you've owned salsa dancing.
I can't say I own it. I mean, I would say on a highest level, I make a B+ dancer, but on a very high level, right? So there's still people that are better. It's once you own something, it's sort of, you can enjoy it. You don't have to think about it, right? When I started out, I was counting in my head 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and I had to get that out of my head, and then all of a sudden it was something that I can interact with, but it's sort of half subconscious, right? So it's being able to jump between, I know exactly what I'm doing, and just letting it go and play with itself. But I find SE users have a big advantage compared to me in picking stuff up. I would assume you enjoy dancing or other.
Yeah, I love dancing.
Yeah, so.
Dancing's one of my favorite things in the world.
Amazing. Now I want to salsa dance.
I was going to ask if you bring those maracas around with you everywhere you go.
You should, shouldn't I? I don't need maracas. I'll just use whatever's around me at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. If people aren't getting the reference, we were talking about 16 personalities earlier, and the ESFP for 16 personalities has the maracas. So we like to joke about it, and we like to talk about Kristin with her maracas. Anyway, so SE DOMs are less likely to deal with anxiety as they are not in their heads and worrying about the future.
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
From what I've gathered from all of my SE Dom friends as well, they have a lot of problems with anxiety and panic attacks because NI inferior, like your inferior function is what's going to like cause a tidal wave and attack you. So you're constantly, well, not constantly, maybe I have more problems with anxiety than a lot of other people, but a very high propensity to be afraid of what things mean and what's coming for you in the future. And sensing that an outcome, especially for ESTPs who are outcome focused, sensing that an outcome is coming that's not going to be favorable, they suffer from really bad anxiety.
My ESTP brother gets into anxiety. He realizes that things are catching up with him sometimes. So if he's done something and then he realizes that, I don't know, let's say like he purchased a stock and then now it's going down. Like it's causing him anxiety because he was really quick to act and to get the stock, and then now he's experiencing that anxiety. So it does exist in SE DOMs. I'm wondering, are most of your friends ESTPs, Kate, or are they a mix of both? A mix of both. Okay. Interesting.
Somebody's muted.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you muted me. No, they're a mix of both. Like I know a lot of SPs in general. I don't know a lot of NPs, so this is cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we talked about NPs. So when people take the 16 personalities test, the EPs tend to score towards ENFP. So like when you have ESFP friends, even my ESTP friends, and sometimes my ENTP friends too, like there's a bias towards scoring ENFP. So if you have a friend who tells you that they scored ENFP on 16 personalities, it's very likely that they could also be one of the other EP types too, or another type in general. But it's skewed towards that way.
Yeah, I've scored ENFP on that test.
Yeah.
16 personalities confuses big 5 trait openness with intuition. It's conflating the two, and that's why a lot of people will get that they're intuitives when they're really not.
True.
Well, it also conflates agreeableness with thinking and feeling and so on. And
it's a big 5 test. Yeah.
It is a big 5 test, exactly. Because it has the neuroticism trait at the end hidden under turbulent or assertive. That's neuroticism, but anyway, I digress.
Makes sense. And so what do you all think of INFPs, and how do you all interact with them?
INFPs would ask this. Like, what do you think about us? Like,
I love talking to INFPs about books and movies and other kinds of things and philosophical ideas, but like especially books and movies because we can kind of analyze what we like and do not like about the characters and about the story, and it's just really good conversationally, I think, between an INFP and ENFP. And I also can learn a lot from their closeness with FI, so they're good to learn from as well.
Makes sense. And so if any of you want to comment on INFPs, you can, but I'll just say the next question. What's your type's biggest blind spot? How did you finally see it?
That people can be terrible people, and it's not necessarily redeemable. That is a possibility that is hard for an ENFP to accept because we want to see the possibility for everyone to grow and be better. And I think that's our biggest blind spot as a type. It's also our greatest strength, but it can be our biggest weakness as well.
Joyce, you're muted.
Whoopsie. And so I was wondering, does that tie back to your, like how you said that you have a naivete?
I think it does. I really do. I think, because we have we are idealists, like the NF temperament, which means we do try to idealize the future, and we idealize every person that we meet, seeing like the absolute best that they have and what possible positive potential they have, and we're always looking for that, like almost can't stop looking for positive potential. And I do think that is integrally linked to the naivety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would say blind spot is something which one does not at a young age as an ENTP. I think lack of focus has an opportunity cost, and very often you just a lot of wasted potential. You might still do okay, but you have to go the long way around. And sometimes you say, you know what, I could have done this 3 years ago, but I didn't because, well, TE and SI would have been needed to do so, but you chose not to. So to be mindful of, opportunity cost of not following through with things or having the focus that somebody with an I might have.
There was a theme during this panel of a lack of focus said in different ways. I think Kate mentioned how sensory things can distract her, so she has to purposefully try to cancel them out. And so I was wondering if with EPs, their natural state, if they were to not like try to inhibit it, is like this broad perception. So because of that broadly perceiving everything, it can result in a lack of focus sometimes. Not all the time, it's controllable, but it's there. I noticed that theme come up a few times. Just thought I'd mention it. And so anyone else want to answer?
I think blind spot. Thanks. I think a blind spot for ESFP is thinking about the long-term consequences of behaviors that we want to follow in the moment based on those like impulses that we have. That's a huge one. I also relate a lot. I wouldn't have thought of this by myself, but I relate a lot to what Michelle said about assuming the best in people and wanting them to reach their best potential and their best selves. And I think that's that FI auxiliary function. And then like you believe that they can, and then like you keep believing they can, and then they just like, I can often invest or think them like too much or assume the best of people, and then like spend too much investment at the expense of my own sort of like emotional well-being or something. And I also don't have like that kind of intuition about people. It's kind of like when I meet someone, they're kind of like a blank slate, and I like assume immediately the best in them rather than kind of giving them just like a neutral state in my mind. I feel I'm very bad at like reading people like under the surface, reading their character or like what they're like as an actual person. I don't know. So I don't know if other ESFPs relate. If there are some in the comments, feel free to jump in.
Fascinating. That brings us back to the optimism and how I was saying FI has an optimism to itself too, because it's optimistic about people. It believes in the best in people. It sees people as redeemable, and it sees your potential and who you could be, or like the best in you. And they believe in it to a point where they could get hurt a lot from people. And so that also leads to the cheerleaders, FI being the cheerleaders. So that's what it means. Because they see how great you are, they're going to want to cheerlead that. And so that's one of the differences the EFPs, like ENFP and the ESFP, have from the ENTP and the ESTP sometimes. And so, anyone else want to answer this question?
Yeah. Sometimes in order for things to happen, it's necessary for you to let go and not try to control outcomes. By you, I mean me.
We figured that.
Cool. So that's really fascinating. Control is a very human thing to want to do. And I wonder if everyone's process in life is radical acceptance. That's what brings true peace. It's accepting things. They say that true happiness or true control is in growth, because it's like allowing, even if it's like accepting that you can't control things. So you have control of yourself in that sense, because now you don't have that expectation that you can control things. So then now you're able to be free. So I don't know, there's an inherent freedom to that. Sorry, I went on a huge philosophical tangent.
Sounds like the serenity prayer, right? I mean, you want to know what can you control, what can you not? You familiar?
Yeah, that is a good one for sure. Oh, oops. I'm looking for questions. It's actually my screen is very delayed, so now I'm running out of the questions.
You want to go skydiving? Is that it?
Interesting. And so impressions. I would like to see if you guys can do impressions, because we were talking about it earlier. Would y'all? Oh, maybe I'm putting you guys on the spot. You guys don't have to do it.
Can you define what you mean by impression? Like, sorry, definition, but
you guys can have an impression of me, or like imitate me.
What do you mean, like acting impressions?
Acting impressions.
Why don't we do that question and say, like, people's impressions of us? What do we feel like? People's general impressions of us. You guys are welcome. Saved you from that question.
Joyce is reading another screen, so just tell me you want to go skydiving.
The audience? What's that? I'm looking for the questions. They're lost. My SE is like, well. Oh my gosh, I had an SE malfunction. Like, it's a human thing too, but I was trying to drink from this, and I just poured it completely down my shirt, and I'm like, just act like it's cool. Act like it's cool.
You meant to refresh yourself, right?
How much impact can other people have in how much they help or harm you?
Big question.
Yeah, I think it's dependent upon the situation. Oh, sorry.
No, I was trying to interpret it, because a person might not be a native speaker based on the name, just a guess. They might maybe mean how susceptible are you in general by perceptions of others of you and their behavior. I'm just guessing. I could be wrong. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I have to retract on that. Michelle, you were into something.
Oh, I was just going to say, how much impact can other people... Okay, wait. How much impact can have other people in you? How much you can help and how much... It just seems like how much can they impact you in, like, help and harm, and I think that that's very situational and depends on the person and depends on you and your state of mind at the time. So like what might impact you a lot in one moment might not in another. So I think that that's a very difficult question to ask without a specific situation.
Yeah.
For sure. I guess like, so in the type community, how could someone into typology help or harm you? What would be helpful for someone to help you with in terms of type, and what would be harmful? I don't know. Trying to give a context.
Like, what do you mean by that?
So I guess with, yeah, what do I mean by that?
And what do they mean by that? And others.
Inferior FP and inferior T.
I love that. All of our faces were like.
Wait, that's none of our types.
It's TI and
So, what's an annoying stereotype for your type?
ladies.
All of them.
Yeah.
We are loud and bullies, and just shallow, and just into sports and trying to have sex with other people, and not interested in any sort of like philosophical or academic endeavor at all. Yeah, all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. There are SE DOMs with PhDs in philosophy. So,
Yeah.
myth busted. How about everyone else?
I'm not super triggered by any of the stereotypes because they're just so ridiculous that I like to believe people don't actually believe them. But obviously, I guess the fact that we're just like dumb or stupid is like just so off the mark. But, you know.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Michelle?
Yeah, and I would say the notion of being argumentative or debater, I mean, that's the name they give us. I don't argue for the sake of arguing. And many MBTI-related posts, it's like, oh yeah, and then the ENTP likes to argue. It's like, no, what? I argue partly to get to know you. There's different reasons. Sometimes I want to spar with a person to get to know them. It's a way of getting into their heads, or to actually learn something about a subject matter. But I don't like to argue for the sake of arguing. Like, it's either to have a connection, I satisfy my FE, or TI to learn something, or to maybe brainstorm. Now, I like to pick another side in an argument to learn something, but I don't argue for the sake of arguing. And that's a common stereotype for ENTPs.
Yeah, and I think it's one that's really not understood very well at all. So it's good that you mentioned that.
That's true. Michelle?
I'm trying to think of like specific stereotypes. I really just get frustrated by all stereotypes in general of any type. The stereotypes that bother me the most aren't even related to my own type. They're related to other types. I'm trying to think of one specific for ENFP that like sticks out to me, and I can't think of one right now. The one that bothers me is a stereotype of INFPs the most, I think.
Share.
Bothers. The whole like connection of depression/suicide to INFPs just actually pisses me off. So,
Yeah.
like, it actually makes me excessively angry.
That's
To the point of being
fair.
homicidal, or not quite?
It's almost. I mean, some people take it a little too far. I think just joking about suicide in general is terrible. I think no one should do it. But on top of that, connecting a type to depression in general is just completely unfair. And I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Any
I completely
kind
agree.
of connection of mental health and type should just not be made. Yeah, there's correlations, like ADHD is common in EPs and IPs, but anyone can have ADHD. Like, I think there is a connection of ADHD to NE, which, you know, I can see it, but yeah, just mental illness in general being connected to any type is...
Oops. Was that
pisses me off. Oh no, Kate!
Kate's just decided she was done. Irish accent.
You
Irish
triggered.
accent. Love it. That's kind of accent.
Yeah, maybe it's the good old battery getting to 0 and not realizing it. Maybe that's a sign that we should close off our panel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that why you bumped her? You needed an excuse. You guys,
It's all coming together now.
Classic Effie.
Moving the chess pieces. I'm
that was
kidding.
real FU from you. There's no FU now.
Yeah, so it was really nice talking with all of you. And your
This has
EP
been
energy.
so much fun.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I feel like an Energizer Bunny commercial where I'm just getting powered up by the endless amount of almost pseudo caffeine in my blood now because of the EPs in this.
Does that mean you'll be crashing in the end? Because you might just need a day or two alone.
That's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I got a private text from my sister. Well, a couple. She firstly said that she wants to go salsa dancing now because of you, Boris.
Oh my gosh!
Well, you're only halfway around the world.
And then she also said that, like, she was like, Kristin, have you S'd out yet? Meaning, have I lost interest because there's too much, like, topics of conversation happening here? And I was like, I literally haven't S'd out once in this conversation. I've been
That's
absorbed.
amazing.
It's so interesting to me. So you guys are so much fun.
Right in my F.
Yeah.
Pour your water, you mean? Never mind.
Burn. And so thank you everyone for coming out. Check out the YouTube channels Heart of Michi and Dear Kristin. They have amazing content and you won't regret it. You will just love it indefinitely, like how I love everyone on this panel.
Thank you, Joyce. And Kate from Type Match. Check out her channel, even though she left
from
us.
Type Match. Yeah, it's rad, and her dating app is one for you to check out if you want a dating app that is type related.
The more people who join it, the more possibility of finding the right person. So, just saying.
Oh, many wrong ones. You can at least enjoy the experiences.
Well, there's that too.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so, Boris, you totally have to salsa dance with me sometime. Because
Long
you
term.
live in
I'll think
proximity.
about it at one point, maybe in the summer. Well, not summer, late fall. We used to do that actually. At one point, well, anyways, long term.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are you both from Australia or? Sorry, I meant Michelle and Kristin. Are you both?
Yeah, what was the question? Oh, Michelle, are you from Australia?
No, I wonder where Michelle was from because she was.
I am in the US of A, in the good old Midwest.
Because I remember earlier on somebody said something about Australia and Shrek, so you were just.
Oh, yeah, I was more so implying that because I've been hearing her Australian accent, it would be more likely to come out Australian than actually. I think it's like some kind of like Scottish accent, more like so.
Because you didn't sound Aussie to me. That was random context.
No, I'm not. I wish.
So maybe sometime in the fall we'll drag the whole gang out, and those guys will have to hop onto planes.
Yeah,
I guess.
Sure.
I can permanently emigrate to Toronto. Can I have a place to stay, someone?
Depends on your standards.
I mean, if your standards are low enough, you can stay anywhere.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's really nice to talk with you EPs. I'm sure you all would be great at whatever you do because there's just this natural charm you bring into it. And it's naturally, like, it's enticing. It draws people in. It's almost like a siren, you know, when people would crash their boats because the melody would be so beautiful that people would be captivated. And so I think EPs have that similar type of just natural ability to charm a room. without trying. It's this youthfulness that people crave and want more of and want to become. And so people, they're infinitely drawn to EP energy. And so I felt that during this panel. I was drawn in. I was captivated. That's why
I love the Joyce lift up speech that you do at the end of all your panels. I'm like, yes, it's coming and I'm ready for it.
FE makes you warm and fuzzy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Kristin, the reason why people love your videos so much, it's been gaining so much traction. Like, your video has been exponentially growing, like the coronavirus when it first started, but in a positive way.
Joyce. So lovely. Tell me what you really think. No.
But yeah.
I'm guilty of not having seen your site. Is it typically a live show? And what is your theme? Is it MBTI?
It's the best 16 personality skits on the internet. It's unrivaled.
I mean, that's a subjective claim, but I mean, I do have fun with it. I mostly do personality sketches, and I hope to do some more like theoretical sort of videos as well. But like, I don't have a lot of like comedy is my comfort zone, so I'm there for the moment. Yeah.
Before COVID, I used to semi-frequently do improv with folks, and it's something I really love.
Oh, you'd be great at that.
Well, I mean, yes and no, but it's a great thing, even for little INFJs that claim to be maybe on the shy side. It's a great liberator.
Yay! Yeah. So,
Chris, I can see you being totally entertaining. I think I'm gonna give it 5 minutes and then come to a harsh judgment because I want to see the rest.
Oh, thank you.
Love the honesty.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you all. Sorry that Kate had to leave us, but I didn't think.
And thank you to all you commenters who've been commenting. It's been cool to see familiar names. Yep. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great questions, everyone. It was nice talking with y'all and seeing your questions and interacting with you beautiful audience members.
You guys are great.
EPs are just great at wielding comedy as a deadly weapon. Like, it's just so well wielded. And so humor, comedy, fun, youthfulness, traits associated with youthfulness, they're amazingly wielded by EPs, unrivaledly matched. So I love that. So thank you, everyone, for that jolt.
Joyce.
I feel like I visited the fountain of youth, and now I'm going to get 10 years.
I love this. This is so Joyce. I'm so here for this.
I'm sure you get tired already, but soon they're going to say, "Come here, little girl. Do you want a sucker?" And they give you like a little ice cream.
Thanks for having us on, Joyce. It's so nice to be around you. You have you make everyone feel so comfortable. And yeah, I love watching your panels, and I've really enjoyed being here.
Thanks, Kristin.
Couldn't have said that better myself. Thank you for directing our conversation and keeping us on track, because we could easily get down our little rabbit holes.
Yeah, we stayed pretty on track, actually. It was cool.
I think we did, but I think Joyce helped in that.
She really did.
Yay! I maintained the focus for everyone. The tank or the carrier, like, I don't know, the person.
Ah, yes.
Good joke. And so
we're all the 80 carries, like, just we're throwing bullets with our words.
Oh, you're so cute, Joyce. You're like, it was a joke.
Now she needs to go.
No, we all took that very seriously.
Yeah, the EP is the least likely.
Joyce, did you cancel your appointment for the typing? Because otherwise you'll have an unhappy client.
I did cancel it. Yeah. That's
It's
why
almost 3 hours.
That's why it looked like I was multitasking through it.
I just want to be sure, if not, you owe somebody a call and saying, "Listen, I got stuck in that EP thing."
Relatable. Oh, gosh.
Amazing. Yeah.
You'll have to cut us off eventually, Joyce. We won't take it.
It'll just continue on indefinitely. There'll be no end, just beginnings with these. I'm kidding. So, Michelle, I really love your background and your equipment. You've really been upgrading it.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for your new development on your channel, Michelle.
Yeah. I am too. I hope everyone else is as well, since there'll be a lot less MBTI content, but I think it'll be good. I think with me being more passionate about it, it'll be more enjoyable to watch.
Awesome.
Did you find a sponsor?
Yeah.
Because something says blue on your microphone. Is that Labatt? That's
Oh, no, this is just a blue branded microphone holder for my microphone. I got one that was like sturdier. It was like more expensive, but the microphone is more expensive and the lighter ones like move more. And so I didn't want to, because I am prone to accidents, I didn't want to like hit my microphone and then have it like swirl around and hit the wall. So
I thought you had a sponsor already because it looks almost like the
I wish.
blue, but it's not blue. So.
No, I think Kristin's closer to getting a sponsorship than I am, if she has not already.
She does? Who's your sponsor?
Oh, well, you'll have to keep an eye on the channel, Boris.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, shit.
For some slapstick comedy. I'll fold you right on over. I'll leave you guys to it.
Oh, I know the perfect way to end this panel off is to watch one of Kristin's skits.
Oh,
it's only
what?
2 minutes long.
What?
So
Let's do that.
I can share
my
screen.
gosh, why?
I can.
Yay!
What skit are you going to watch?
Yay!
This one is 2 minutes. They've been getting longer and longer.
Ending videos.
Oh,
Isn't
wow, we're
this
doing
amazing?
it.
Oh, nice
All right.
choice.
Wait,
There's a middle finger pointing at us all.
yes, this is awesome. Embarrassment Central. Oops, I closed the tab. Sensory.
Well, this is just this is because you didn't give us your Shrek impression earlier.
Okay.
Right.
You know what? Fair enough.
So
The
this
Scottish
is something you
accent is why
published.
I'm not so confident. Which one are we going to watch?
Let's see. At board game night.
Okay, so these were made like over a year ago when I did not have a good handle on the cognitive function, so you will be triggered, I'm sure, but anyway. Yeah,
This will be a fun one.
this is a new experience for me.
watching Kristin react to her own videos.
Yes, Kristin reacts.
Let's do it.
Were you going to explain the rules? No, it's fine, you've already started. Sorry, Jess, did you explain the spade rule? Guys, just another rule.
Why did these people come to a board games night if they were just planning on eating and chasing an endless string of tangents all night? Quick, say something that brings their focus back to the game without being too blunt.
Sorry, I don't see what relevance that has to the game.
Nailed it.
Snap.
For the last time, I'm not evil. This is just my personality.
Sorry, Boris.
It's okay.
So turn your head. There is a creak off the door. Darkness ascends. Night has fallen. Sorry, no, don't close your eyes just yet. I'm not done.
This is so
Well, if you
weird.
didn't want to cry, Carl, then you shouldn't have come to a board game night. Huh?
Ben needed a 7 3 rounds ago, and I know that he didn't get one because Sarah put one in the discard pile at the beginning of the game, and I have the other 2 in my hand. I'm only holding on to them so that I can win the game when I ask Brad for a 5 next round, which I know he has because Sarah gave him 3 and he only played 2. So go on, Ben. Ask me for that 7.
Go fish.
Yes, Ben. Go fishing for your beloved 7. Meet face to face with the disappointment of it.
Oh, the little men are so cute. Hello, little man. Well, that's
I've done that
ludicrous.
exact thing.
Why would we go to sleep when we know that there's a werewolf in the town? Don't I have a weapon or something? Guys, this is kind of dark. We should make this a drinking game. That was fun. What are we going to do now, guys? Oh, it's not over? No, that plan makes no logical sense and we're not doing it.
Yeah, this is fun.
My goodness, are they getting out another board game? I didn't sign up for this.
3 spaces for us. So how is everyone?
That's awesome.
That was amazing.
Really awesome. I love it.
Thank you. That I made that one for Instagram about a year ago during lockdown when I was like, I need to perform for people. So I uploaded that to my private Instagram and my friends liked it.
Yeah, it was really good. Really well done. You're
I
talented.
agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
The purpose
And they've
of
got
that,
so much more extra ever since, like, naturally.
yeah, the purpose of that was to highlight your work. It wasn't trying to make you uncomfortable. Yeah,
Thank you.
just wanted to show off your amazing work. It's like I'm your mom and I'm trying to show off my amazing daughter. I'm like, wow, look at Kristin, she's amazing. But except it's not like that, but it kind of is.
Well, thank you guys for partaking in that experience.
It was great. I was entertained.
That's great.
Yeah, I admire your skits. Yeah, and thanks, Boris, for hosting the meetups in our local area that are type related. So he's the ringleader of the type meetups we have in my area, and he does a good job giving us autonomy and freedom, and letting us talk about.
ENTPs don't like to lead. I just like you guys as a gang, so I got to keep it alive, right? On the other hand, if you have a trustworthy deputy, preferably INTJ or INFJ, I will gladly pass on some of the responsibilities.
Cool. Yeah. So thank you, EPs. This was a ride.
You're not biting.
I know that Smiley is trying so hard.
No, I like it when you drop in, because I can always pick on you and then delegate some questions to you. I love it. It's great. And sometimes you just duck them so obviously. You say, well, how about them Jays? Or what do you guys think about... She totally ducks questions, but that's okay.
Yay. Yay for dodging questions. And I will end the panel right now to dodge a question as well.
Okay. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you too.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye.